Mandalorian Day, everybody, and welcome to the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!
And Laura Kelly.
And Laura Kelly! Thank you all so much for joining us live here on this special spoiler review episode of The Mandalorian. I can't stress this enough. More than any other episode in the last 2 seasons, this is a spoiler review episode for season 2, the season 2 finale, chapter 16. So much to get into here in this episode. It's a 46-minute episode directed by Peyton Reed. And written by Jon Favreau. And we're going to dive into all of it step by step, piece by piece, break it all down, and then hear from you all as well. Send in your Streamlabs and Super Chats as we're going through all of this. But let's introduce ourselves. I am one of your hosts here. I am the Outlaw, John Rocha.
I am one of your other hosts. I am Michael Vogel.
And this is your other host, Shannon McClung.
Welcome back, Shannon, and this is Laura Kelly. I'm guesting tonight, and I am happy to be back, and I'm trusting these 3 dudes to tell me if I get lipstick on my teeth. So
I don't no,
so far you're good.
Yeah,
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to have the whole crew together for this. So this has been great. I mean, like, we started off with Shannon at the beginning of the season, and then Laura came in, and it's been awesome to like talk Star Wars with you. And now for the big finale, we have our big finale, which is all of us together doing this live, which is pretty awesome.
This is the ultimate crossover.
Totally, yeah. And at the end of the show, Shannon will go off with Laura Kelly, and that's the he's the baby Yoda to her Luke Skywalker. So there you go. Spoiler! I said spoiler. I warned you. So let's get into this thing. Let's do this thing here today. This is going to be so much fun. Let's get into it. So all right. I don't even know where to start. Let's just start with the Doctor. The Doctor being pursued by Boba 1 here as we start off. The main story of this basically is we set this up over the entire season. And what happened a couple episodes ago, Baby Yoda Grogu was taken by the Dark Troopers and Moff Gideon. And Din Djarin has been working hard last episode to figure out how to get to Moff Gideon. Certainly Bill Burr helped him out on that one. Bill Burr's character helped him out on that one. And now we're here. So they are going after Moff Gideon. And as the episode opens, we have Slave One chasing down this Imperial ship with the Doctor inside. Right off the bat, let's get your assessment of this, Michael. This opening scene, what a way to start. He ends up neutralizing the ship with the his ion cannon blast, and had shades of the opening of A New Hope with that sound and almost like that Star Destroyer taking over Tantine. Like, it just was so amazing. What do you think of this opening here, Mike?
I'm more impressed right now with the opening of Geek Buddies because this episode affected you so much today.
I've seen it 3 times. I can't function. I can't function.
John Rocha's intro to Geek Buddies today is analogous to the entire internet. This is what the internet was doing today all day long. It is a thing of beauty to see. Listen,
I can't function. Go ahead. Yeah,
we all love the Outlaw. It's nice to see him geeked out once in a while, and this is you are fully geeked out right now, my friend.
Yeah, I am. I'm in full geek mode. Talk to me. What do you think of this?
It was great. I totally agree with you. What I love about, and we've said this the past couple of weeks, what I love about The Mandalorian is when it wants to take its time, it takes its time, and when it doesn't want to, it doesn't. And opening this up with just right away, the Slave One coming in hot. They're in the middle of this chase. It's what Star Wars does the best. I mean, Star Wars was inspired by those movie serials where you kind of came in and you left on the action. And so what they do that's so much fun is even if they kind of leave out a chapter, like there's a couple pieces left out between Mando kind of giving his Liam Neeson moment and us getting here. It's stuff that we don't really need, and we can fill in the gaps ourselves, and we just get to dive right in, and that's what I loved so much about it.
Yeah, Shannon, your thoughts on this one? What did you think about this opening and the shades of A New Hope that it kind of, mirrored as I was watching this opening? What did you think?
You know, I love me a good space chase. And like Mike said, I mean, sometimes with writing, you're like, God, I've got my guys here. I need to get them here. How do I get them here? It's like, doesn't matter. Just open. They're already there. Boom. We're right in the chase. And the thing that I really loved, not just about this episode, but the episodes leading up to this when I was gone, was we always heard how awesome Boba Fett was, but we never ever got to see it that much. And to watch him, just watching Slave One chase down that shuttle. I mean, we saw a little bit of an Attack of the Clones with Jango and Obi-Wan, but watching Slave One just take this shuttle down, and then once you go inside the cockpit and you've got, I mean, I thought that was just fantastic writing. Like, you've got these two Imperial pilots who are very much like, shut up, you're not in your lab, sit down. Yeah. And just super tense moments. I mean, yes. I mean, as soon as it started, I was debating last night whether I was going to start it or wait until this morning. I tweeted that out. And last night I tried and it would not come up. And that was the Force. The Force was interceding and saying, you know what, you're going to fall asleep during this. Wait until the morning. I thought it was a fantastic opening. Love how much they've shown off Tamora Morrison as Boba Fett this time, and just getting to see what an awesome ship Slave One is. Yeah,
Laura, we've been seeing Slave One over the last few episodes really kind of solidify itself as an awesome spaceship and youth. I mean, we've seen obviously descriptions, or we read descriptions about it in Legends and all these other things, but now to actually finally see it in canon, working, functioning, kicking ass, flying through, and clearly someone kept that thing well oiled and well lubed that it's still working this well after all this time. Pretty incredible to see all the different weapons that it has, and then to have that shades of the opening of A New Hope there. I think they even had the same sound as Slave One was going over that lack of a better term, windshield, and then coming inside and seeing this interaction, which has shades of a little bit of topicality as well. So what did you think about this whole opening before we even get inside the ship?
I mean, I loved the opening sequence. It was really fun. I love that we jumped right into the action. There was no time wasted at all in this show. And I love the point that Michael made, that the show knows how to slow down. It knows how to take the quiet moments. But in this episode, it was just boom, let's go. And we had Boba being like, hey, we're going to board your ass. And get on board this Imperial shuttle. We've got two Imperials. One of them flips like a pancake right off the bat. No holds barred. It was fantastic. The show did not hold back. And I was really excited to see us just jump right into the action.
Yeah, Laura, I mean, you've been talking about how we've had hardly any British Imperials. Well, the first British Imperial we see, as you said, flips like a pancake. The American guy, though, the American accent guy, a little more of a combative stance, shoots the British. I like that Favreau and Peyton Reed and Filoni had these screams from these guys as they were shot. Homie was shot from behind. He's like, and it just dies. And then later on, when we see Cara Dune shoot Homie in the face, it's just so quick, but you hear his scream as he's shot.
In the back. Shot him in the back.
Yeah, shot him in the back straight up, said, I'm not with this guy. And it shoots him in the back there. But he takes Dr. Pershing, Laura. He has the gun, the blaster rather, on Dr. Pershing. And they have this political back and forth between Cara Dune and this guy, and it has shades of this idea of terrorism, this idea of killing these planets. Do you know how many millions of people died on these two Death Stars? Yeah, well, killing your planet was worth it to stop terrorism, and blam. So this felt very, very topical with what's going on in our world today, and Star Wars has never shied away from politics. So were you surprised by this interaction, or did it add an even more, deeper level to what was happening in this show?
I don't know. For me, it added a lot more to Cara Dune. I mean, we've seen her we saw this callback at the finale of season 1 of the reveal, essentially, that she was from Alderaan. We haven't seen a ton more really sort of hinting to that. Yeah, so this is kind of a nice little callback to that moment, but then really getting to see a stronger reaction from her, specifically about Alderaan, talking about how, people were cheering all across the Death Star and the galaxy when your planet blew up, and it was just, it felt so personal. Yeah, so it was intense. I enjoyed it. It was a nice touch.
Yeah, Mikey, we heard the tear being somehow tied to Alderaan, finally explaining that tattoo, almost like what you see. I mean, gang members, you see that in LA. Gang members have a tear for the people that have died in their family or their friends who've died in gangs. They put a little tear out of remembrance. It's almost like this is reminiscent to that, right?
Or military guys or girls, like people in the military getting a tattoo for somewhere they served or something that happened. I think the tear, it was great to like kind of get context on the tear. I love how, two parts to this. One, it's great how Filoni and Favreau are able to take things that we know from the history, the mythology. The blowing up of Alderaan is huge, and we all tie that to Leia. But by having Cara Dune be a rebel soldier who also was from Alderaan, they're allowed to explore sort of the way that this huge tragedy actually did affect people. And it takes things that we just have grown up knowing as like a fact or a cool moment from a movie and grounds it in some emotion, which is really, really neat. As for the other stuff that they say, yeah, you're right. The quote, like he says to her, do you know how many millions were killed on those bases? Destroying your planet was a small price to pay for ridding the galaxy of terrorism. And I think what's really great about this is taking away any kind of political reference to what's going on today or making any kind of commentary on the real world. What they are clearly doing here, to me, is they're building a bridge and building a case for what the Empire was doing between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens that is more than we bad guys, we gonna bad guy some more. When we get to Force Awakens, we've got the First Order, we've got stormtroopers, there are bad guys because that's what we know and but like there's a lot of people came out of Force Awakens super happy that it felt like Star Wars and loving it, but these questions about how did this happen? Like, how did the New Republic let this go down? And between the last few weeks of Mandalorian, like last week we were talking a lot about the conversation that Miggs and Mando had with the Imperial officer, and this week the kind of comment on terrorism and some stuff Moff Gideon says. They're clearly making a case for the Empire's perspective here, which is we are creating order in this complicated mess of a galaxy, and you are a bunch of terrorists that killed millions of soldiers. And that is a whole twist on things that I think is not just a throwaway thing or not just to make a political comment I think that this is building a bridge to what happens politically between the New Republic and the First Order, the same way that Filoni and his team really filled out the politics in the era of the Clone Wars and the prequels.
I think that's a great point, Mike. It fleshes out both sides' points of views, both sides' approach to this situation. Remember, this is all happening in the Outer Rim. So this is all like, they're getting pieces of information from the more main areas where these political machinations and these political discussions and battles are happening. They're doing what they can out here where it's less policed, it's less monitored, and trying to put it together out here to rule once again. And you're seeing the back and forth that's occurring here. Shannon, another part of this also is that they are looking, this might have started, don't you think, and I don't know how I'm familiar with this, but it feels like, and maybe Laura and Mike can chime in on this, it feels like this was where they were headed a little bit, even as far back as like, is it Dark Star? Is that what Dark Star is? The Claudia Gray novel where they were showing this romance between two people on opposite sides and seeing what it's like on the Death Star and hearing about them losing people on the Death Star and what have you. Is this a dangerous way to go down? Because you're almost trying to give us an idea of people dying on both sides. So which side should I choose?
Well, it's interesting because they kind of touched on that with the last episode with Mayfeld. Like you got even though he was an Imperial soldier, he wasn't okay with everything that went down. And we haven't talked about just the performances either. Those two Imperial pilots, those guys were fantastic.
Yeah, they were doing good.
I am not the biggest fan of Gina Carano's acting, but she had, that standoff moment was just beautiful. Like so well shot, so well acted. But yeah, I don't think humanizing the other side is, I don't think that's a bad thing in storytelling. I think that makes the stories more interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. Lost Stars. That's what I meant to say. Sorry, Lost Stars, not Dark Stars. I apologize. I'm still recovering from that reveal. Real quick, Josh Mabry says, Can someone ask Rocha if he liked the episode? He's being quite cryptic.
Hey, John, did you like the episode?
We're gonna find out later. All right, Tim says, I understand the why of Luke appearing here, but I can't escape the disappointment of the obvious fan service. Personally, preferably, I wanted to be surprised with Cal or Quillen instead. 4 out of 5 for me. Tim will address this later on as we go, because we're going through beat by beat, scene by scene of this episode, but we'll definitely address that. I did hear that from a number of people out there on social media and other reviews, how they felt it was a little bit too much of the fan service, but we'll get to that. Fan service is not necessarily bad if it's done well. All right, so after they handle this stuff with the Imperial officers, they succeed, and then sorry. And from there, it's time to pick up 2 more old friends. Instead, they're heading off to pick up Bo-Katan and Costco Reeves. This is awesome. We see Slave One land. They walk in. I don't know what it is about Mandalorians, but they're always hanging out in bars, just hanging out, having drinks and whatever. You know where to find one. Laura, you see there, it's Bo-Katan. It's Mercedes Vernado again, a.k.a. Sasha Banks. Costas there. But the dude is missing. I guess the dude wasn't needed in this situation. So they walk in, and immediately there's this kind of like trading of insults. We're not all bounty hunters. You're a disgrace to your armor. Sidekicks don't talk. So is this the kind of thing that goes on with Mandalorians? It's kind of like chest bumping and whatever. Is this expected? Is this kind of a greeting between warriors?
This felt on brand for me, I think, when it comes to, the types of Mandalorians that we met, especially in Star Wars Rebels, and I guess in the Clone Wars too. They're all a bunch of toughies, or like to think that they are, or play like they are. So this felt right, I think, to me. But yeah, it was very exciting to see the gauntlet parked outside of the bar. Love the idea of the Mandalorians always hanging out in bars. They're my kind of people. I was excited to see Bo-Katan back. I had predicted that she was going to come back. I was very excited to see her back and sort of helping on this final mission in this season. But it was interesting to see this exchange. And it was especially between Bo-Katan and Boba Fett, where she seemed to assume that he was a clone, and he didn't really correct her explicitly, which is fine. It's like, it's just, he doesn't have to, I guess. But it was just interesting to sort of, it didn't even really occur to me the first time that I watched this episode. They're like, that she was confused thinking he was a clone. I was like, yeah, because he sounds and looks like clones, of course. But this was sort of fun. There was a lot of tension in this scene. So this was fun to sort of watch it play out between the two of them.
Yeah, what'd you think, Mike?
I actually really enjoyed it. I what I love about it is, I think in terms of Star Wars, we kind of always want characters to be as caught up to speed as we are. It is a natural assumption what she says, I wrote it down because it was so cool. Like, he's like, this armor belonged to my father. And she's like, don't you mean donor? Yeah. And he says, be careful, princess, which I thought was nice because technically that is kind of the role she occupies in Mandalorian. It was kind of a nice Han Solo Leia callback in the tone and dismissiveness with the way he used the word. And then she was like, you're a clone. I've heard your voice thousands of times. Like this assumption, which is not like Boba Fett's the anomaly. Like, she has dealt with so many clones in her time. And I love that Boba's like, I don't give enough of a shit about you to explain this, so I don't need to say anything. And I think that this dynamic between them and exploring that a little bit is something that we'll get into hopefully in season 3. But I thought that it was just a really great exchange. And again, just the way of sort of grounding all of the things that we know about clone troopers and her past with the Republic and with everything else, it was just great. And then we got to see great Mandalorian on Mandalorian action with just like a quick, awesome fight scene where you really, I think one of my overall things aside from like the big reveals of this episode is like, Mandalorians are badass and Beskar is very, very strong.
Yeah.
It can put up with a lot. But like, so watching them kind of go toe to toe with the flamethrowers and like Sasha Banks getting to show off some of her moves, like it was just a great little mini moment before we got into the major action.
Well, and also the jetpack is not just for transport. It is a way to gain leverage on an opponent. And I love the way, like, they did that in the first episode where the 3 Mandalorians showed up. But they used it in this one as well. And I thought it was just I really love the fight choreography that they are developing for the Mandalorians who trained on Mandalore. And plus, when she called him a clone, she's not wrong. I mean, he is a clone, but I think it's interesting the way how Bo-Katan and maybe the Mandalorians at large, the way they view those clones is a little less than.
Yeah. And you are right. Like, we're all like, well, no, he's Boba's son. But you are correct. Like, he is the same as every other clone trooper, except for one little genetic difference.
Did we solve that on episode 1 of our review this year? I think of this season. Did we solve that he was an altered clone? Did we settle on that?
I really feel like the end of this review, you need to be like, by the way, it might not be Boba Fett. I'm just saying.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. I love that line when she said, because it works for you. And Laura, it does work for us, right? All of us who've seen Clone Wars, all of us who've seen this live action version of Bo-Katan, having her say, I've heard your voice many times. That was a great line. And then him coming back, because he's badass, with this might be the last voice you hear. You keep pushing it, princess. It's pretty awesome. And then we see this battle scene between them. Now, what's curious, and I want your thoughts on this, Laura, Mando doesn't say a word to stop this at all. Is this just standard stuff and he's going to let this all play out? Because it's actually Bo-Katan who's like, enough. If we'd shown half this spine, which I thought was a weird line to say. Bo-Katan is not an easily likable character. She spouts off. She has a lot of pride. She's almost a bit condescending. And when he says princess, there are levels to how you're delivering that word. And it feels like she checks all those boxes. She is a princess, but she also acts at times like a princess and like she deserves certain things. Yeah. And the way she scolds them both as if the Mandalorians didn't fight when the Empire came after them, I thought was interesting. And then Boba saying Mandalore, he laughs at that and says the Empire turned that planet to glass. It was such a power. These are powerful exchanges that may be laying the groundwork for what we might be seeing later if there is a season 3 of this series. What did you guys think of this interaction before we leave the planet?
I do think that it was really, it's been an interesting choice all along to make Bo-Katan a flawed character. Mm-hmm. I think that was supposed to sort of be like a juxtaposition between her and Satine. Satine was very much the idealist and, sort of seen as, pursuing the path that all Mandalorians should have been choosing. But the fact that Bo-Katan she's stubborn and she's prideful and she does come off as a little bit entitled sometimes. She's flawed. It just makes her more interesting to me, I think. So I sort of enjoyed this component of her character. And I do think it was interesting that they left Mando, Din Djarin, to just sort of kind of stand to the side and let this play out. This is one of the interesting things about him is that the creators of the show aren't afraid to just sort of let us be Din Djarin and observe in the show. It doesn't always have to be all about him. We get to sort of take in his point of view every now and then, which I think is it's sort of comforting and it makes him a little bit more relatable to us.
I agree. He's not a reactionary, Mike. He's not.
Yeah, and look, Bo-Katan was a terrorist.
Yes.
And had a very bad relationship with her sister, who she was a terrorist against.
Yeah.
And then even once she came back around, everything went to shit on Mandalore thanks to Darth Maul.
Yep.
She finally got rid of him. And then Mandalore kind of fell apart as the Empire rose up. Mm-hmm. She felt like she wasn't a good leader. Sabine shows up and she's like, I'm not the one to lead. Then she gets the Darksaber and leads, and clearly that didn't go well because we see where she is now. So like she's had a lot of losses, and she was an angry person with a chip on her shoulder to begin with, as a lot of Mandalorians apparently are. But yeah, she's had a lot go down in her life, and so it's fitting. You are 100% right. She's not a character that's easy to like, but she's a character that I find fascinatingly cool.
Yeah, and in this moment, Shannon, she makes a deal. Okay, I'll help, but I want that Mando offers the light cruiser to her to help her go and take Mandalore back. And she initially dismisses him early on in the scene that you're not going to find if Gideon has taken the child, you're not going to find him, but he's located. So this idea that everything's an exchange. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I just like it because to Laura's point, Mando doesn't say anything. Like, Boba's fighting, everyone's going crazy. Yeah. He doesn't say shit. And then she's like, you'll never find him. He's like, oh, I found him.
Oh,
it was like, he's going to drop that. By the way, we did that already.
Yeah, she's very much, it's a transactional relationship. Like, absolutely, I'm going to help you, but this is what I need. And even looking at her later in the episode when she's on the bridge of the cruiser, She doesn't look that far off from an Imperial to me.
That's a fair point. And look, she says at the beginning of the scene, not all of us are bounty hunters. Well, let me offer you a light cruiser, a chance to get a light cruiser. Are you going to go along with me? Yeah. Well, that's kind of a bounty. Well, you know what I'm saying? I'm putting it out there. This is the payment for your services. So I just put it out there. So maybe they are all bounty hunters, just throwing it out for possible consumption. Either way, we get Bo-Katan. They get aboard here, Bo-Katan and Cosca Reeves, and they are going on. And then Moff Gideon has the Darksaber. So this is another reason why she wants to get this opportunity. And this will come into play later. Is she wants to have Moff Gideon on her. She makes it very clear that Moff Gideon is hers. And we know she wants to. But did you guys know, as we find out later, that she had to beat someone? Maybe this fact left my brain, that she had to beat whoever holds the Darksaber in order to claim the Darksaber? I didn't know that was an element of this.
I think this came up in Clone Wars.
Yeah, it is. It does come up in Clone Wars. That's how Darth Maul ends up with the Darksaber and gets to be head of Mandalore. And somebody just mentioned this in the comments, and I thought we would talk about it later, and we can dive in more of it. The way that the Darksaber comes into Sabine's hand, and then Sabine does just give Bo-Katan the Darksaber, and she takes it. And so there's a lot of people that are like, whoa, 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 she already got handed the Darksaber once. Why is it an issue now? Yeah. And I think, and we can dive into this a little bit more later on, this very much to me feels like what it was like when the Mandalorian started, and they were all like, we don't take our helmets off. And the entire internet was like, Mandalorians do take their helmets off. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is a mistake. And clearly it wasn't a mistake. Like, they figured this out. Like, I am more than confident that Dave Filoni knows what happened in Star Wars Rebels. I am more than confident that he knows that Sabine literally handed Bo-Katan the Darksaber, and that when she says what she says. Now, I think the one distinction is, Sabine just found it. Like, Darth Maul was gone. Darth Maul had left it at that point, so there was nobody really to beat. Yeah. And so it was kind of like open and in play, whereas now it was much more, well, this person has it to this person. But I do think that this discrepancy is not something that is a mistake, but something that they're going to explore in season 3, potentially when they bring Sabine into things, possibly.
Right. Well, they're all back on the ship with Dr. Pershing, and they're looking at the light cruiser, and they're seeing the dark troopers. They're worrying about what to do with these dark troopers, and Dr. Pershing is the one who chimes in and explains to them that this is a third version of these troopers, and they finally figured out that the human inside was the final weakness to be solved with these dark troopers, and already laying the groundwork for how vicious they're going to be later on in the episode, and how almost unbeatable they will seem to be later on in the episode. And then we start to hatch out the plan of what they're going to do. Mike, I saw a lot of people talk about this plan being hatched out, and when it starts to come into fruition, that it shades of Battlestar Galactica. I did not watch Battlestar Galactica, but a lot of people felt that the maneuver they were going to try to do here was very reminiscent of Battlestar Galactica. Did you watch this show? Do you think it sounds familiar to you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities. Like, first of all, the Dark Troopers were giving me some major Cylon vibes. So I think that there's Katie Sackhoff is there. So you're like, all right, well, Starbuck is chilling out here. Now you got these Dark Troopers that are like Stormtrooper Cylons. So you're like, okay, I got Cylons. And I think just looking at the way the light cruiser is set up, like one of the big parts of Battlestar, the reboot that was so cool, was really seeing the ships and how they were loaded up and how they were launched into space and how they came back into land. And usually when we're dealing with an Imperial Star Destroyer, they just sort of open it and thousands of TIE fighters come flying out. This, we really got to see this on a light cruiser. It's like, load up TIE fighter leaves, load up TIE fighter leaves. And the way that they crashed that shuttle, and it sort of just like crashed into the docks in a very bumpy ride, like that was right out of Battlestar. Battlestar was we are the herky-jerky, not everything is working right space show. And so kind of seeing something come in and crash into a docking bay like that after seeing the way all these things were launched definitely had a lot of Battlestar Galactica vibes for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Laura, the Bo-Katan is the one who comes up with the strategy of how to attack the light cruiser, how to take it over, and how to put everybody in place to be able to do that. They're going to head through the launch portal while the cruiser is in the process of sending out its TIE fighters, and then Mando will slip through the shadows while the rest of the crew wreaks havoc throughout the ship as a distraction. And it's a pretty incredible sequence, the way it's shot, the way they do it with Slave One obviously simulating like it's trying to shoot that, and Bo-Katan yelling in saying, I got to land this thing. I got to get through the portal, blah, blah, blah. And they end up landing inside, and Slave One takes off and what have you. But seeing those TIE fighters get shot out of that portal, I lost my fucking mind. I had to pause. It's so badass. So what did you think, Laura?
My first thought was, put me on that roller coaster at Galaxy's Edge. Make that into a ride. I'm fully on board and here for it. Because that was also my question. I'm like, wait, is that how the TIEs are deployed? It did seem kind of different because we do normally see them coming out by the thousands.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a really interesting sequence. I do wonder at this point if maybe they forgot about what they were supposed to do with Dr. Pershing, and by they I mean like the creators and writers of this episode. Yeah. What happened to him?
He disappeared.
I think he was on the Lambda shuttle with them. He wasn't on Slave One with Boba, so he's not. Did they just like tie him up and leave it? Like that was a loose end for me in this episode. I'm like, wait, what happened? I really like this character and I love what he brought to this show. I would have liked to have known kind of where he ended up at the end of this episode, but it's fine. Circle back to it in season 3.
Yeah. It is true. I mean, like, look, the ship is still, I mean, the Imperial shuttle that they were on is still crashed on the cruiser. And when we leave them on the cruiser. So true. I do see it easy to sort of be like, we catch back up and like, yep, they tied him up with some rope and like threw him in the closet.
Yeah, he doesn't seem the most like he's not going to fight back that much. I feel like, and they do kind of promote him, Shannon. They do. I mean, like the homie has the blaster on him. Says he's a clone engineer. Says that if you mess with this, you don't know who you're messing with. Blah blah blah. So clearly he's built up. But Laura's right. As soon as they get onto the ship, poof, he's gone. He's not really a factor of this at all. Were you surprised by that?
I mean, I didn't even really think about it until Laura brought it up. Yeah. But in my headcanon is he's on Slave One, is that, they weren't going to keep him on the shuttle, that they're going to ram into a cruiser. Like, This guy is valuable. Don't give him back. Right. What Boba did with him, we have no idea. Maybe he's rotting in the sands of Tatooine right now.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe he's at Jabba's castle. I don't know. Maybe that's all kinds of possibilities at this point. Mike, did you like this tactic? Did it seem like it was a little bit crazy, or did you like Bo-Katan's strategy going in here because they roll up and just start mowing down stormtroopers and Imperial officers?
It's so funny. One of the things I love about this show is its simplicity sometimes. And so many times when you get to your big sort of whether in a movie, your big third act battle, or in a TV series, your finale, it's like, all right, so here's what we're going to do. We got to do this, but we can only do this once you've pulled the trigger here. But when you pull the trigger, and they create this big thing so that everybody has a lot of action. This was actually pretty smart. Like, hey, you know that this shuttle is coming with Pershing on it. You know that Mandalorian is after you. We're being chased. Makes sense. You crash in, and then the whole concept of like, we're going to go make a bunch of noise. Like, we're the attack, and you sneak off and do what you need to do. Like, I'm sitting here watching it, and I'm like, I mean, that is very simple, but that seems very effective. I like this is good. This is good for me.
Sometimes what the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and this is pretty much a straight line through this whole situation. But Laura, look, I'm going to ask the lady on this panel, the woman on this panel. All the ladies are doing all the fighting here, kicking ass while Mando is sliding behind. How come people thought the A-Force moment was unearned in the end game, but a lot of people loved it here? Do you think it was because it was so subtle and just done this way that it worked out? Is that why they jettisoned the male Mandalorian so it was all women just kicking ass, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. The thing with Avengers is that for me, it just felt a little bit forced. For this, it felt extremely natural. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was one of those things where I think we were halfway through this sequence before I even noticed, like, oh, check that out. That's just 4 chicks. I love it. Like, I was totally here for it. And I think that this sequence was really fun. I did wonder a little bit when Bo-Katan was on the comm talking to the cruiser if maybe Gideon recognized her voice. He had a couple of moments where he sort of paused, and I was like, well, he must know who she is if he like at some point presumably took the Darksaber from her. So I wonder if maybe that was sort of their first mistake, if they should have had someone else talking on the comm. But that sequence was really fun. It was great to see them sneak around. I love the sequence where the two Mandalorians jump off of the bridge and sort of fly away, and then they come back and take out the stormtroopers. It was just thrilling. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, Shannon, that's what you were talking about earlier. I mean, like, that's like the Mandalorians using their jetpacks not just for flying or escaping. Like, that was such a that was one of those awesome, like, wouldn't have thought of it, and it was such a great, awesomely executed action moment.
Well, something that made me laugh in that sequence when the stormtroopers fell off the bridge and threw the magnetic shield into space. Like, what's the point of that magnetic shield?
Yeah.
If the only thing it's going to stop is a ship, it can't stop a guy in armor.
It would look weird, though, if a stormtrooper was like, oh, hey.
Well, I mean, they had that in Rogue One.
I was just going to mention that,
planet around Scarif. I just thought, like, I don't know, maybe, I mean, the Empire is clearly, they've suffered some losses. They had to cut down on the budget, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah, and look, I as a gay man who loves the A-Force moment in Endgame, I will say, like, I think Laura is correct. Like, the A-Force moment is an awesome, fun moment that is ridiculously cheesy, but you're like, I love it, but it's not organic.
Right.
Like, none of these girls necessarily all know each other. Half of them have been gone for 5 years. Like, when did Gwyneth Paltrow get here? Like, it doesn't actually make sense that these specific people would get together for this specific moment. But as far as, like, I flip the page in the comic book and it's all girl power, I'm like, I love the moment, but I completely understand why some girls were like, okay, calm down. And Laura is right. I mean, I was right there with you. I was halfway through where I was like, God, this is awesome. These are all so badass. Like, it's all girls. Awesome. Cool. And I think that a lot of people that I saw on the internet today kind of talking about it kind of said the same thing. It was like, this is how you do it, because it was not a girl power moment first and story second. It was story first. And we've just set up all these women in this story to be this badass that it seems completely natural.
And looking at the differences of the way they all fight. I mean, you've got the two Mandalorians. You've got Fennec, who's a little more lightning fast, and you've got Cara Dune, who's just the bruiser. I mean, that's what makes fight scenes really interesting to watch, is when you have dynamic differences between how the characters interact.
Yeah, in my mind, I was like, this could be female Expendables. I'm totally down with this. I'm here for this. Set up some more women and let's go kick ass and have a fun spin-off of that series as well. I'm down with that. And Cara Dune really comes to life in these fight scenes, these fight sequences. I mean, Gina Carano does great job, because Shannon, you were mentioning her acting earlier. In a lesser actress's hands, these are overacting moments. These are moments of doing it too much. And if it was a male version, you'd see that sometimes too. Doing too much. She is very calm. She's experienced. She's a drop trooper. She's done these things. She knows this situation, and she handles it. Even when her gun, her rifle, whatever that monster thing is, isn't working, she figures it out without the help of the lady. She's like, I'm gonna bam, Dank Farrick and son of a whatever, and then boom, she's got it going. And I love seeing some more character from her, because it seems like Star Wars, it feels like Star Wars, whatever the outside issues are, they are committed to this character and gave her a lot of stuff to do here in this fighting sequence, and a lot of places to shine.
Well, two things on that. One, when this was all filmed, they didn't have the same outlook that they may have now. That being said, I don't think they're going to do anything. Well, no, because it was filmed a while ago. I mean,
but you don't think she was saying anything on the set? You don't think she was having interactions? So just put it
again,
up.
like, I don't know. But I mean, again, as I've said before, we said like previously on a couple weeks, like, I don't think that everybody on a set judges somebody from what they're tweeting. I think they like judge them from how they are on set. And she might be awful on set, and she might be amazing on set.
Fair enough.
We don't know. The other part that I do think is interesting is on the gun jamming moment, it was all cool, and Fennec coming to the rescue was cool. Like, everything was cool. Like, it was just awesome. But the writer side of my brain, you're always kind of like, well, what was this for? Like, was this planted for a reason? And knowing what we know by the end of the episode from the post-credit sequence, I do think it's cool that these two women were fighting together, and Fennec came to Cara's aid and helped her out, when by all intents of the end of this episode, Fennec and Cara are going to be on very opposite sides once we get into the next few seasons and series that are coming down the pipe.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, and while this is all going on, we have the Mandalorian here, Laura. Din Djarin comes over and he sees the Dark Troopers have been activated, and he's freaking out. Runs over, puts that thing in the slot to try to stop them from coming out. And one Dark Trooper puts the hands between the doors, kicks it, pulls it open, walks out, and shuts it behind him. And takes on the Mandalorian. Now, Michael, I know you mentioned Battlestar Galactica and the Cylon stuff. For me, the design of the Dark Troopers echoed another Disney franchise, and that is the Black Hole. It looks like Maximilian and a shoulder thing like this. The way the helmet is designed looked very much like Maximilian from the Black Hole. And I wonder, since Favreau and Filoni are around my age, that there is this kind of maybe homage to that in the design and the look. But either way, we get an incredible battle sequence here where it looks like the Mandalorian is going to get punched into the next galaxy, Laura. It's a pretty brutal fight for sure.
It really is. These Dark Troopers are no joke. We see him try fire. It doesn't work. We see him waste some of his whistling birds on this thing. It doesn't work. It ultimately ends up being the Beskar spirit that takes him down. But this was a sort of interesting sequence because I think at this moment I was sort of waiting to find out if these Dark Troopers are made of Beskar. Ultimately, we know they're not. We see, them pretty much get mowed down by a lightsaber, and from what we've seen earlier in the season, lightsabers can't necessarily penetrate Beskar. So that sort of confirmed it later, but at this moment I was still kind of wondering if that were the case. But yeah, these things are brutal. I really did enjoy this sequence though, where he finally is able, of them prying the doors open.
Yeah.
The building tension in this sequence was just impeccable. It was so, because you just kind of are waiting for him to eventually lose a fight. We don't see this happen a ton with Din Djarin, but it kind of felt like that was what it was going to come to.
Yeah, Shannon, when he was getting his face punched against that wall, it looked like, my God, how many more punches before he shatters that Beskar armor?
Yeah, I was not a Battlestar Galactica watcher. The vibe that I got was Terminator. I'm like, it doesn't matter what you do to this thing, it's not going to stop.
Yeah, the red eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally the vibe that I got. And then when he was finally able to defeat the one Dark Trooper, and then he, pulled the switch to expel the rest of them into space, I was like, oh, great. Oh, well, they are robots.
Yeah.
So they can probably, this isn't
coming back.
This isn't the knockout punch that we felt like it was going to be for a second.
Yeah, and like they laid the groundwork for this one, didn't they? Because in the interaction with the Mandalorians at that bar, they kind of offhandedly mentioned how the Darksaber and the Beskar and the spear and all of this is that spear is really essential. And then, of course, the Mandalorian uses it here in the fight and kills whatever you want to say, kills the Dark Trooper and then sends him out the window. What'd you think about, or the portal? What'd you think of that?
I thought it was great. I don't think did they bring up the spear specifically? I think just in the cantina they did talk about
they brought up
Beskar broadly, that we've all known, like as soon as that spear popped up. I do think it was really smart of them visually to, as in addition to it just being awesome and amazing back in chapter 13, but Ahsoka and the Magistrate having their little battle, you saw the Beskar spear used against a lightsaber.
Yep.
So like they established, like we all know conceptually that that's true, but being able to see that in that moment so that we knew that. But yeah, Beskar, best armor. Let's give every football player Beskar helmets. Like they seem to be very effective. Like they're pretty amazing. It's pretty awesome. But also, I was not as smart as you guys. Even though we saw Dark Troopers fly out of a spaceship down to a planet, take Grogu and fly away, when they did that moment where they all flew out the airlock, I was like, oh, I thought we would have gotten more with them.
Oh, what? No. I'm in your camp. Laura and Shannon may have thought they were coming back. I'm in your camp, Mike. I thought, well, what was the point? Don't do this. This is a Captain Phasma moment where you build up something and then you just kind of send it out the airlock. I was super mad. So when they came back, I was like, oh, shit, motherfuckers.
Yeah, and I love it because, had I thought, these guys are such smart storytellers and everything is great, but I was so in the moment that I was like, I thought that would have been a bigger thing. Really, they really built that up. All right,
if that's where we're going to go. All right, so this all happens here with the Dark Troopers. We get an idea of what they're actually going to be like. Then Mando's trying to find where Grogu is at. and ends up finding Grogu there. And it is inside that place after he takes out those 2 stormtroopers inside that cell. And it is one of those moments where I was like, oh, you bastard. It is Moff Gideon there with the Darksaber, holding it over Grogu there as Mando steps through into the cell. Laura, explain to me, what are these cuffs that can stop a Force wielder from using his Force powers?
You know, I kind of think back to Star Wars Rebels when we sort of see Sabine, I think, use some tools that were created for Mandalorians specifically for fighting against the Jedi. And my thought sort of went immediately to those. I'm like, maybe this was something that was specifically designed for this purpose, sort of based on those earlier designs that the Mandalorians created. Beyond that, your guess is as good as mine. That was the best guess I could come up with because, he seems so tired through the whole episode. Like, I wonder if whatever these little things are that they're like sucking the energy out of him because he just seems so beat down the whole time.
Yeah, what's your guess, Mike? They felt a little like they had ion vibes to them with the same color. Yeah. Those ion charges, maybe.
I was thinking back to, I mean, like we know. And I don't know that this is Mandalorian tech. It's the Empire has it and whatever they like. I just am like, okay, he can't use the Force. That's a thing. But like when they captured Darth Maul in season 7 of Clone Wars, and they put him in that giant sort of Hannibal Lecter Jedi holder. Yeah. Like the Mandalorians have had a lot of experience building stuff to sort of defeat and deal with Jedi. So I was like, I mean, maybe is this something it is? Like it's a little bit. I'm not quite sure how it works, but I kind of just accepted that one. I'm like, okay, I'll give it to you.
And I'll go back to you, Mike, on this one because as you just mentioned, you do, you do write scripts, you're the story, you do watch these things, these plants or whatever. While this is happening, or before this happens, the ladies break through. They get onto the bridge of the ship. They take everyone out, and Bo-Katan turns around and goes, "Where's Moff Gideon?" And that's where we cut to this sequence here between Moff Gideon and the Mandalorian. Did you like this as a plant because her desire to find Moff is a little bit of a plant of like, oh, I've got to fight him for the saber?
Yeah, it's really kind of they telegraph it really, really nicely. I mean, even for all of us who know, like it reads the entire time that she's just really pissed.
Yeah.
And when you go back and rewatch it, you're like, no. She's very like, I have to be the one to do this. And so it's really, really telegraphed that she's intent on that. And that is something like that from a writing standpoint. It's like, we just need to beat this into this script so that when we get there, because it's a nice switcheroo that they do. Because like I think for most people, when Mando walks in at the end and he's got Moff Gideon and he's got the Darksaber, you're like, all right, cool, we all did this, and her face is like not okay. And so I thought the way they sort of built those bricks in the script to that was really, really well done.
Yeah, Shannon Dinjarin comes to an agreement with Moff Gideon here. Says he'll take Grogu and let Gideon go with the Darksaber because all he wants is to make sure Grogu is safe, and that's fine by Moff Gideon. He says that he, quote, already got what he wanted from him, referring to Grogu, which apparently insinuates that Gideon has enough of Grogu's blood that he doesn't need him anymore, and it's his best shot. This is really interesting. He says to bring back order to the galaxy. This is what Anakin was supposed to be, right? The balance of the Force. Bring back order to the galaxy. These words that come back here from previous snippets or previous parts of Star Wars media. What was your thoughts of this interaction here between them?
Well, that one Imperial officer said it in the episode before that we're bringing back order. Like that's not the first time this has been mentioned. And also maybe the reason Grogu was so tired is like all of his blood is gone. I mean,
it's possible. You know what? It makes sense. Checks out. All right.
And how they were able to make those tiny little Force manacles. That was definitely a custom job. But yeah, I mean, at this point, Dinjarin can't know what's about to happen. His concern is rescuing this child, rescuing his adopted child at this point. And what I loved what Gideon did, because Giancarlo Esposito plays intelligence so well. He plays strategy so well, where he's like, yeah, you can have him. Let me take my ship. Let me keep the blood. You can have him. and then he full on attacks him because there's no way he's gonna he's going to need a recurring supply of this blood, and he knows the only way he is going to be able to defeat Mando is if he cheats, is if he sneaks. Like he gets him in this vulnerable position, he puts him in a place of rest, and as he's going down to pick up this kid, he attacks him from behind. Yeah. And that is just the trademark of an awesome villain. Like villains cheat and villains lie. And so, yeah, I thought that was awesome.
But Laura, yeah, go ahead, Mike. What were you saying?
Well, I just wanted to call back to one thing you said about the Order and Anakin. There is a difference between balance and order. The whole thing with the Force. No, I mean, I think because what I think is interesting about where they're going with this in general is, like Laura said last week, like when you're reading the books and everything, like the New Republic is kind of chaos. Yeah. And even the populists, which Leia is on the side of politically, are like, we should let every planet sort of do their own thing and whatever. Right. And that is sort of chaos. Mm-hmm. And the Empire is preaching order. Like complete order, everybody follows the exact same rules. This is what we want to be. Right. And I think kind of to the point of what Anakin is all about and the whole idea of the Force and balance and good and evil and Star Wars being a brand that is about balance is through 3 trilogies, countless novels and comics, all of these TV series, you have a group that is sort of chaotic, sort of ragtag group of people that are all over the place, and you have this very, very ordered, very direct sort of imperial side, and both of them are arguing. So I think the order versus chaos of the rebellion or the resistance is sort of the ongoing struggle, and finding that balance between the two where you're both coexisting is what the bigger goal of everything would be, because they're both always trying to snuff the other out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Laura, you get into this battle between the Mandalorian and Moff Gideon. Are you surprised that Moff Gideon didn't know that the Darksaber doesn't work on Beskar armor? You'd think he'd done a little bit of research. This is a little bit like War of the Worlds, where, wait, there's bacteria on this planet? There's water on this planet? Like, this seems a bit weird that he wouldn't know that it doesn't work on the Beskar, or is this something new that he's discovering as the fight goes along?
You know, I didn't make that connection of whether or not he had just figured that out in the middle of their duel or not. But this duel was really fun to watch. I think we heard a lot from Giancarlo Esposito leading up to the premiere of this season, talking about how he got to do a little bit more this season. He got to have a lightsaber fight in this season. So this was fine. This was really fun to actually get to finally see this. He's pretty skilled with that thing. I mean, he holds his own for a while. Yeah. Sort of right up until the end when the Mandalorian sort of gets an upper hand on him, but it was fun to get to see it play out. I wish it would have been just a little bit longer, that there was a little bit longer of a spar, but that's okay. My assumption is that maybe some of it ended up on the cutting room floor, but the fact that Din Djarin then won that duel, for me, my immediate thought was, so he's like the ruler of Mandalore now? Is that the direction the show's going? And this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. I was surprised he didn't. I guess I was surprised he didn't do more damage to him. But then again, I mean, let's be real. Giancarlo Esposito, kind of an old guy. He's not going to fight for too much longer. So it was a fight that was very well done for the short time that it lasted. And you're right. He held his own. He knew what he had already used out of his arsenals. He cut that tie or that wire he wrapped around him pretty quickly and was able to hold his own. Then he knocked it out of his hands, took that Darksaber, and then drags Gideon up into the upper reaches of the ship there to the bridge, and drops him there for all those ladies to see, and especially Bo-Katan, who, as you said, Michael, is not happy to see what has happened, and Moff knows and immediately begins to needle her and poke her about it. He still has the upper hand in this situation, even though he's in the handcuffs. Did you anticipate there was going to be an impromptu fight between both, even though the Mandalorian was trying to give her the Darksaber?
I mean, I was a little bit behind Laura on that. I was like, again, like the same with the Dark Troopers. I was so wrapped up in this episode that I wasn't always like jumping ahead, which I always enjoy, because there's some times where I'm just watching something like, all right, then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. And it was great to be like, what? I don't really know. And so it wasn't until like Bo-Katan's face was so angry that I was like, oh, wait a minute. Is Din Djarin the leader of Mandalore now?
Yeah.
And then it all kind of came out. And, I did, like a lot of people, like I instantly grabbed my phone as they were explaining, as Moff Gideon was saying, well, this is what happens. You can't just hand it to her, when he was like, no, I yield, take it. Like, you should have it. And she's like, no, I can't. I'm literally Googling. I was like, Sabine gives Bo-Katan Darksaber. And I'm like trying to look it up. And then I was like, I didn't want to get distracted. So I put it down. I'm like, I'm just going to go watch those episodes on Disney Plus when this is done, which I did. But it's like my entire brain was like, wait a minute, this isn't quite matching up. So I was kind of focusing on that as I was watching all of this kind of roll out.
Yeah. What'd you think of this sequence, Shannon? The tension? Because I think we were going to get an impromptu fight if the Dark Troopers didn't show back up a few seconds later. I thought maybe we were going to get a fight between these two Mandalorians for this Darksaber.
What I started in my head, the road it started to go down was there. Because, I mean, I paused at that point. I'm like, wow, are we already done? Because I think there's like 20 minutes left.
A lot of credit.
I thought what was going to happen is Bo-Katan was going to go after Din Djarin and Grogu was going to force her apart. Yeah. That we were going to get to see him use some force wielding. But I mean, it's such a testament to the creators that when you care about these characters so much, the last thing you want is to see two ostensibly good guys fight.
Yeah.
And especially over a reason as much, like, because as Gideon said, is like the Darksaber itself doesn't have the power. It's the story of the Darksaber. It's the symbol of the Darksaber. And she had an at-bat already with being given it.
Yeah. And I do think, and this is why I was talking to some friends afterwards about it, and I do think that this is where Sabine may come into the story moving forward, because I do think one of the reasons Bo-Katan is so insistent that she needs to earn it is because she may feel that she didn't last time.
Yeah.
Like, she was handed the Darksaber before, and in her mind, and in reality, it didn't go great. Mm-hmm. She turned out to not be the leader that she thought she needed to be to save Mandalore, because the Empire came in and just like wiped Mandalore clean. Yeah. So even for her, I mean, that line was very important. Like, it's the story that's important. I think Bo-Katan is having a whole, maybe the reason that I didn't win Mandalore back is because I didn't earn it, and I need to earn the Darksaber now.
You know, Mike, as you're talking, it occurs to me the whole season has been about breaking down the Mandalorians' ideas of what it's like to be a Mandalorian, what you have to do. This is the way, taking off the helmet. They're a cult, the Children of the Watch. Maybe this is the moment where Bo-Katan has to kind of confront her own ideas of what she thinks constitutes a Mandalorian or a leader of Mandalore, and maybe break some of these tropes or I don't know, traditions from before.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is where they're going with it or not, but I mean, it would be an amazing moment after she looked at Din Djarin and said, you're part of a cult that has these crazy beliefs.
Yeah. To
get to next season and have her say, I have to earn the Darksaber because I didn't earn it last time, and this is why this happened to Mandalore, and him saying like, it sounds like you've got some crazy beliefs.
Yeah, one person.
I mean, like, it would be a great sort of turning the table moment between the two of them as characters.
Yeah, I agree. One person's Scientology is another person's Catholicism. We discussed that on the last show. But yeah, this thing we'll get into here.
Oh, John.
And then just before we're about to, and I do believe this was going to happen, which is the way they set up. And Laura, it wouldn't have been wrong, because remember, and this occurred to me the third time I was watching this, I was so caught up with the fact that he wanted to save the child. He betrays Bo-Katan by saying, I'll let you go with the Darksaber. All I care about is the child. So in essence, he betrays Bo-Katan to save the child. So she would have been within her rights to challenge him for that Darksaber on the bridge of that ship.
Yes, he's very goal driven, and this is one of the things I really love about him. And then Bo-Katan's stubbornness combined with that, I mean, this would have been a very deadly duel between them had it come to that.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of glad that this episode didn't seem as tempted by that as I would have thought to go in that direction. We had a story that we needed to get done, and it needed to get us to that point. Yeah. And I think this was around the moment where I looked down at the timestamp and paused it to be like, how much longer is left in this episode? We've accomplished a lot in a short time. And I remember being very surprised that I think at this point there's about 20 minutes left in this episode, including credits, of course. So and exciting.
No, let me say, it is a betrayal. It's not like him saying you won't die by my hand. He's saying, I'm going to let you go. So that is a betrayal, son. If you did that to me, that's a betrayal to me. I'll tell you that right now. All right, we're at this point. There's 420 of you joining us live. Thank you so much. Please hit that like button. Please hit that. We do appreciate the thumbs up, and start sending in your Streamlabs and your super chats here for these questions as we're wrapping up the review of this episode. We want to answer your questions. We might even bring some of y'all in live to ask your questions and have the discussions, depending on how many questions we get on Streamlabs and super chats. The address is above my head or in the description of this video, or you can send in your super text here in the chat, and I'll bring it in and we'll discuss it. That's for sure. That's right. Dad Rocha does speak the truth. Damn right I do. All right, let's move on.
Okay. You guys, don't let it go to his head. Come on.
Anyway, before we get going, the Dark Troopers come back, and both Mike and I at this point, I assume, are like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah. Laura and Shannon are like, that's what I expected. Rocha and they're like, something's coming in, and I was like, this is literally me. Sometimes I'm a real dummy. They're robots. Like, where Shannon had gotten to like 30 minutes earlier, I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, that sequence of them just flying with their, I was like, oh, here we go. And then, as you said, Laura, I think earlier, the tension now builds as they land, and then they just start punching through the door, and Gideon is just like, this is all over for you all. Look how much it took you to take out one of these guys. You're all going to die. And in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, oh, how are they going to get out of this thing? How are they going to overcome all these Dark Troopers coming after them at this level? And then we see that, we hear that noise, that something is coming into frame. It's a single X-Wing. And at this point, I start to begin to lose my mind. As soon as I see the X-Wing, I'm like, does Ahsoka have an X-Wing? I don't know what the fuck is happening here. What Jedi is showing up? Because I know it wasn't Homie from Kim's Convenience. I know it wasn't him. So I'm like, who is sliding in to this situation? And then we see from the monitors, we see this hooded figure come out. And at this point, I'm screaming, literally left the room. Because it's 7 a.m. She's like, I can't handle it that you're going to be like, and I'm like, yeah, please leave the room. Let me enjoy this. And I was just screaming, going, no way, no. And then, boom, Mikey,
Best line in the episode to me.
Which is?
What? One X-Wing? Oh, great. We're saved. And that was when I knew, like, I will say, like, of all the things, of like, usually I don't like being wrong. I prefer to be on the side of I was right, and I can rub your face in the fact that I am smarter and I knew what I was doing.
25 years. Don't I know?
I have never been happier to be wrong. And the moment that X-Wing showed up, somebody tweeted this, a lot of people have tweeted this, but I literally heard Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park in my head. And I was just like, they did it. Those crazy son of a bitches really did it. Like and then my brain just had like, wait, how are they going to do this? Is it like a lot of questions? But yes, to Johnny's point, you see the X-Wing. It's a triple reveal. You see the X-Wing, then you see a green lightsaber, and then I was like, well, we're fucking done.
No, you see the X-Wing. You see the security footage.
Yeah, the footage. You see the footage. Yeah,
right. And then you see the green lightsaber. The whole time I'm thinking, maybe it's not him. Maybe it's not him. Maybe it's not him.
It's a slow build, though. It's like you see like the dark outfit. You see the black leather boots.
Yeah. Then you see the glove.
You see the black leather glove. I'm like, it was such a build to it. But literally from the moment the X-Wing touched down, I was like, I spent about half a second running through the people in my head it could potentially be. And I was like, it's Luke. This is
Yeah.
Well,
Was Ezra a possibility in your mind at all in that half a second?
Not when
No.
I saw
I will
the
say, not in that half a second. And I had kind of given up on Ezra, like I said, Johnny, when we talked about it. But when Rosario and Filoni did that Vanity Fair article, and he kind of went out of his way to say that the end of Rebels with Sabine and Ahsoka is quite possibly after all of this, and given all of the announcements and everything, and I was like, oh, okay. Ahsoka and Sabine are going to go off later. There, a bunch of shit's going to happen, and then they're going to go. Yeah. But I will say, like, they've done such a great job in Mandalorian. I've talked about the Razor Crest a lot, like, and how what a good job they've done making that ship something we care about, and hopefully we get to see it again in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. But Boba Fett's reveal.
Right.
Slave one flies in first, and we know from seeing the ship, oh shit, it's him. The way. Yeah, when he came in and landed on the Jedi planet, where Grogu phoned home. And then same with this X-wing. Like the X-wing flies in, and it was if you're not like a hardcore Star Wars person, you're like, oh wow, one person showed up. Who is this going to be? But for every Star Wars fan in the world, this is now an iconic Star Wars moment where your heart started beating faster, and you were like, oh. And so many articles have said today, and this is the camp. I am firmly in this camp. For CG reasons, for recasting reasons, for 1,000 reasons, we all discounted this possibility.
Did we all?
It's got to be almost everybody.
Thank you.
You know what? This is John Rocha's making up for his Boba Fett. We had to deal with weeks of him saying it might not be Boba Fett, but he got this one, and this is a much bigger one, and he deserves the credit for it.
All I said was, what if it's Luke? If it's Luke, I'll lose my mind, is what I said a few weeks ago.
And I fully dismissed it.
Yeah,
fully was like, it can't be Luke it can't be Luke because of this, and we would have heard about this, and what's going on with this, and how would they do this, and for all the reasons that I discounted it. And what's so beautiful about this moment, to the point about the fan service thing on the comment that the guy from earlier, from Tim. So Tim, like on the fan service moment, like to Johnny's point, fan service isn't always bad, and I do think what's great about this is a lot of times when you bring back a character on the level of Luke Skywalker, it can be very fan servicey. Like, this doesn't make sense. You just did this for the fans. What I love about this moment is it's the inverse of that. Everybody was like, there's no way that they can do this for X, Y, Z, whatever. And the moment that it happens, you're like, I mean, really, he is the only one that makes the sense. Like, this is Luke Skywalker. He's building a Jedi temple. He's looking for people who are force sensitive. Like, this is literally what he's doing. It makes so much sense that you're like, why was I so resistant to this? Why didn't I just go, this is the simplest answer?
It is just like them going through the straightest line, the easiest plan, two points in straight lines. This is the same thing. Shannon, take me through your mental process as this was happening. What was your reaction to all of this? Were you losing your mind as well?
Well, as I was watching this morning, I'm about 10 minutes in.
Oh, no, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that.
Let's just say a dear friend of mine who had already seen the episode threw out a hint on a text thread that I was on that something big was happening that he called in all caps. So once I didn't know what the moment was, but as soon as I saw the X-Wing, I'm like, well, person X, who shall remain nameless, person X was right. Even though, again, I'm watching the sequence of events. I'm watching the X-Wing. I'm watching the security footage. As you see the cloak, the hood, I'm like, is that 2 points? Could that be Ahsoka? and then no. I was like, oh, so this is the moment person X was talking about.
To be fair, this was my text. If you all have seen it, you know why I am yelling. And that's all. And then I said, called it. I shouldn't have said called it. I should have not
you said called it with about 8 L's, all caps, multi-exclamation
That's fair. Let's, you know what? Let's share the screen right now, and I'll show the text. This is the actual text. Can you guys see that? This is the actual text that was there. No, maybe you can't see it. I don't know. Either way, I'm going to stop
I just want credit. I just want credit in front of Laura, and everybody watching right now that I was going to let that slide and not call you out for it.
It's fair to call me out for it. I'll take the hits. But I didn't reveal the spoiler.
You didn't reveal it.
Hinted
you
at
just...
the possibility. Yeah. And usually it's our friend Jonathan Gabay spoiling things. But the reason Michael gets up at 6 a.m. now to walk the dog and get it. So I thought he had seen it by now. And Shannon, I'd forgotten that Shannon was back on West Coast time. I thought he was on East Coast time. Yeah, there it is. I thought he was on East Coast time, and I thought he had seen it already. So it was totally my bad. I shouldn't have said called it. I own that, and I apologize.
Well, and to Johnny's credit, he immediately apologized.
Yeah,
and then later, after we had all watched it, and we could see that John still felt a little guilty, we decided to turn the screws a little bit to see how much we could tighten on John before he snapped. And he never snapped. He the whole time was like, "You're right."
You know what?
Sorry.
Too important. No way.
And I believe I said to respond to all of this. Where is it? Hold on. I don't.
I'm sure Laura's enjoying all of this.
Laura, you don't care about any of this. As I said in the thing, like, you know what? Let's not place blame on anything. We are all very excited, and when all is said and done, all Star Wars fans should be very happy right now. So it was a lovely moment, and we let it slide.
Laura, what was your thought process as it was happening? Were you disappointed? Maybe you didn't seem, I think from what I remember, you didn't seem too keen on them going to Luke on this one. Did you want to see another Jedi slide in here? Because as we've said before, we've talked about on the Jedi Way, like you've come into this through different avenues to become a huge Star Wars fan and a voice in the Star Wars fandom online here. Did you want it to be Luke? Were you excited that it was Luke, or did you feel like, what was your feeling on it?
Listen, I'm not too proud to admit that I often say things thinking that I don't want them. But then when Star Wars gives them to me, I'm really happy to see them. This has happened more than once to me. And this is one of those situations because I have never had a particularly strong connection to Luke Skywalker. I just haven't. I mean, like John said, I came into Star Wars from different avenues. It really wasn't the original trilogy that drew me in, and it's not really the original trilogy that's kept me in. Luke Skywalker has never been the character that I've really related to. So seeing this moment, though, I kind of thought back after watching the episode, thought back to chapters 11, 12, 13 in this season and how I felt seeing Bo-Katan in live action for the first time, seeing Ahsoka Tano in live action for the first time, seeing everyone's reaction to Boba Fett returning to the Star Wars universe, and how excited people were. And it really hit me in that moment, like the impact of Luke and what that must mean to people. And I just got really excited and really emotional on behalf of those people. So I was really excited to see this. At the time, I was freaking out. If I could screen share what I'm looking at right now, my notes are in all caps. And it just says OMFG, OMG over and over again. This was really exciting. And again, it was just one of those things I didn't think I wanted. And then Star Wars goes and proves me wrong. Yeah. Because I really enjoyed it. Yes, I understand the argument that this was fan service, but I've said this before. I'm a fan. Sometimes I like to be serviced. Sorry. And I enjoyed this. I really, there's not much more to say about it for me.
Yeah.
Now I will say, because I can see in the comments, it's kind of being discussed right now.
Yeah.
I've seen deep fakes on YouTube that do look better than some of the moments. Look, it now, like, and what I like, here's the thing.
Let's get to that, though. Mike, hold on. Let's get to that. Before we get there, did you like the way he mowed down these Dark Troopers? Because in a way, Mike, jettisoning them out of the portal there was kind of crappy, but then they came back. But when they came back, they basically served to show how much of a badass Luke was all over again. So it didn't really serve as strong of a purpose as they could have in this situation. Did you feel that was a little bit, as a writer and as a showrunner, a little bit of a cop-out in this moment?
It also showed that they weren't made of Beskar. I just that was one of the suspicions all along, I think, for a lot of people, that the Dark Troopers were made of Beskar and they were going to be totally undefeatable. Yeah. It kind of proved that they weren't.
Yeah.
I think there's a good point to be made there. I think they made such a big deal out of the Dark Troopers and the big reveal of them, and you kind of wanted to see them in action a little bit more. We got to see them take Baby Grogu. We got to see Mando fight one of them, so they did get a little bit of play. But ultimately, the reason that they were built up as badass as they were, and the reason that they got blown out of the airlock and showed up, was to create something that was impossible to beat. That the group of people that we had on that ship, as good as they were, as badass as they were, as amazing as they were at taking down the stormtroopers and getting Moff Gideon and doing everything, that this was too much for them. They were not going to be able to beat an army of Dark Troopers. Yeah. And so they were really there to show off the awesome moment of Luke coming in and to create something that you're like, I've been with you guys all season. Mando is awesome. Grogu can use the Force. Bo-Katan and Sasha Banks' character are good. Fennec Shand, amazing. And all of them are like, we can't do anything of this. And then you get the moment where, and we've now had it 3 times, and Star Wars can just keep doing it. We had Darth Vader in Rogue One walk down the hall with his lightsaber and take out.
I think this was a juxtaposition to
this was absolutely people are putting the shot when they reveal Darth Vader with his red lightsaber and revealing Luke with his green, and it's also exactly, and it was also a reference in season 7 of Clone Wars when Darth Maul goes down the hall and mows down the clone troopers. So you can now take the Darth Maul moment, the Darth Vader moment, and the Luke Skywalker moment, and each one of them are doing the exact same thing in the most badass way possible. And it is now like a rite of passage for a badass Jedi to walk down a hallway and just mow some people down, or robots.
I do want to say one thing, and Shannon, let me get your thoughts on this. After that sequence was over and they showed that it was Luke, and he made him open because he grabbed Grogu. He just opened the doors. They're like, "Are you crazy?" Because of course they don't know who this Jedi might be, and they open the doors, and it reveals that it's Luke. My immediate thoughts afterwards were, "This is what we could have had in Last Jedi. This is what we could have had throughout this sequel trilogy." And it's really on the heels of Last Jedi, being celebrated of coming out yesterday, about 3 years ago or something like that. So I just was like, wow, that's the Luke I wanted, the badass Luke. That's the Luke that we want to have back. And Mark Hamill is credited here, so clearly he did some voice work in this. Did you have any kind of bittersweet reaction to Luke showing up here, considering how they handled him in the sequel trilogy?
That is one of the exact thoughts that I had, was we got to see Luke Skywalker in his prime kicking ass. And I was like, God, even though story-wise, I understand why they went with Luke, rather than another Jedi, whether it be the guy from the most recent guy, Cal from the video game, or Ezra or anybody else. I understand why they went with Luke. It's not where I thought they were going to go. But that's on me. I was dealing with my own expectations. But watching him mow down the Dark Troopers, very, very satisfying. When he took the hood off and you saw, they have made such leaps and bounds since Rogue One with Tarkin and Leia.
Since Tron Legacy. That's a connective tissue.
But that's even before. But I mean, that's even before Rogue One.
Legacy to Rogue One to here is pretty well done.
They've made such progress, but it's never going to be, at this point at least, it's never going to be the same.
Yeah,
but Mike, what we were able to get, it was, again, I'm kind of with Mike and Laura. I didn't necessarily want that, but when we got it, it was like, okay, that's pretty awesome.
And so what I was saying before about it was, you can tell that it's not, you can tell what it is.
It's the eyes,
you look at it, and it's there, it's not quite there, and he's standing very still. He's not moving around a lot because they're trying to keep it as bait. So there was a part of me that's sort of going this is what we're dealing with. It's also why I think we're going to not see a lot of Luke Skywalker. I don't think this is going to turn into, in season 3, we see Grogu training with Luke. I think that this was the moment to explain where Grogu's going to go to learn what Grogu's going to learn. And whatever happens, whenever we see Grogu again, I think we will see very, very little, if any, of Luke Skywalker. I think this was the moment they built to it. It was what it was. It was amazing. And I give it to him. It's kind of the way that I feel about Moff Tarkin and Leia in Rogue One. I don't think those look 100% great either, but the moments are great, and I'll give them the fact that they did the best they could. even though it took me out of it a little bit.
I agree with you, Mikey. They built up to it really well in Rogue One, just like they built up to it really well here in this episode. But Laura, we don't want to go too fast through this sequence. We got to take you through this, right? There is this moment. Grogu has his hand on the screen, kind of feeling the energy. I don't know if he's helping or whatever, but feeling the energy of Luke. And by the way, we can't ignore Luke not force choking, body choking one of those damn droids, which was dark droids, which was scary AF. But you see Grogu touching the screen. Then you see him share a look with Din Djarin. There's a pause and a look to each other that is like, they understand this is the moment where he's going to hand him off to Luke eventually. He picks up Grogu. They walk over. They tell him to open the doors. They open the doors, and then they have this interaction, Luke and Din Djarin. And I'm surprised Cara Dune doesn't recognize Luke, but we'll get to that later. They have a conversation here, and then he takes his helmet off. And I'm going to tell you, as great as that Luke moment was, I think this moment was even better because of the 2 seasons we've had with this relationship. And I started crying. I really started crying because you could feel him touching his face. And Pedro Pascal does such incredible acting here. What was your emotional journey through this whole sequence before he hands Grogu off to Luke?
It was a very, I mean, it wasn't like laying in bed and just kind of like being like, "Oh, isn't?" I mean, this was like ugly crying, Marley and me level, like sobbing happening when this was going on. I did not expect by any stretch of the imagination that we were going to be having this moment of separation at the end of season 2. I would have thought that this would have happened much later in a show that we're anticipating to go for at least 4 seasons.
Right.
So I was really surprised, and I felt like all of a sudden I was on like this whirlwind ride that I didn't sign up for. And that's all following this incredibly like exciting moment of Luke Skywalker mowing down all of these dark troopers. I mean, it's just, it was so hard to sort of emotionally keep up with in this scene. So I mean, I just completely lost it when this whole conversation between them of Luke saying that, you know, he wants your permission. He's of course, you know, his talent is, you know, it's nothing without training. And oh God, I just lost it. And I can't, it's hard to think about going back and watching it again. And I have the same thing when I think about rewatching Jedi Knight and Rebels. It's just some of these episodes they're just too hard for me to go back and rewatch because they're just too sad. And this, I think probably in the future after we have season 3, this may end up being one of those episodes that I just can't go back and watch it. But having watched it now twice, I mean, I had the same very visceral reaction both times, and I'll probably have it again having to watch this episode more than once.
And we talked about it a few weeks ago on Jedi Way. Remember, Laura, I mentioned to you, I said, well, what if he has to give it up? It's called The Mandalorian. It's not called The Mandalorian and Grogu. And you were like, oh, I don't think they would do that. It might take a while, blah, blah, blah. But they did it. And I was, even though I said it in our interact, I was shocked that they actually did it myself. So it was, I just was blown away by this. Michael, were you shocked as well, handing him off, like legitimately handing off Grogu to Luke? And Luke says, "May the Force be with you," and he's gone.
I mean, as soon as Luke shows up, I know that this is where I'm like, this is happening. Like, this is what's going to go down. I also thought, again, kind of to Tim's fan service thing before, this is where Mandalorian shines, is because fucking Luke Skywalker shows up. And the most intense moment is still Din Djarin taking off his helmet to say goodbye to Grogu. Like, they built up to this moment, and they let this moment be the emotional beat. Luke is there. It's amazing. It's super cool. But he takes that helmet off, and I had a whole conversation with somebody, and I can't decide how I feel if him taking his helmet off in the last week's episode undercuts this moment or not, or builds on it. Because in the moment at the Imperial base, he does take his helmet off. So he takes his helmet off 2 weeks in a row. But that was a moment where he took it off out of necessity. And as Laura and Johnny and I talked about, that was getting Grogu is so important that I'm willing to do this. And I need to do this to get to him. Whereas this was a purely emotional moment. This was, I want to do this because I want to look at you with my eyes. I want you to be able to like touch my stubble that I take care of, even though I wear a helmet every day.
How dare you?
But so I thought it was such a beautiful moment, and it does open up a ton of questions about what's going to happen next. But yeah, I thought this was for all of the awesome stuff and the stuff that we're still going to talk about that happened around this and after this and post credits this was the best, most heartfelt moment of the episode.
Shannon, I have to ask you what your journey was with this. I mean, I go out on a high wire on this one. You know, did this strike you in a very powerful way? Yeah, that's all I can say. I don't want to add any context. I think you understand where I'm coming from. What was this experience like for you?
Yeah. I mean, it did. A lot of it. Grogu, like when he was touching the screen. Oh, sorry.
No,
when he was touching the screen, it was this child. Granted, child's 50 years old, but this child knowing like, oh, this is now where my path is. It's going this way. And when Luke tells him like he's waiting for your permission to go, and when he holds him up and he touches the helmet, it was incredibly moving. Definitely made me think of things that are going on in my own life. And of course. The thing that really struck me was the lack of reticence on Din Djarin when he took the helmet off. It wasn't. There wasn't a pause. Like it wasn't, okay, am I going to do this? It was, he freely took it off. And, we had talked about people dealing with the expectations of their lives, whether it's Bo-Katan or whomever. And it really symbolized to me, like this is a man who grew up one way and he has found a different way now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. The taking off the helmet, absolutely symbolically, it seems to be something he's moving past. It's letting go of the old way of doing things of the Children of the Watch. He is now out there, like happens with people who break out of cults. Once they step outside that cult and see the real world, some of the things that they've been exposed to or told to believe, they now see that those were just things to keep you controlled and in an environment believing certain things, and they break free from it. They break free from the norms. The helmet symbolizes that. But I also think it was a symbolic moment as well to have Luke there, because remember, Luke said goodbye to his father by taking off his father's helmet. And it kind of had that kind of resonance as well, with Din Djarin willingly taking off his helmet as the father letting go of his son, saying goodbye to his son. So it was such a powerful moment. And then Luke is gone. And the episode seems to be. Oh wait, we got R2D2 as well.
Yeah,
great. I don't want to gloss over that. Michael, please. You texted us pictures of R2D2. Please go ahead.
I'm going to tell you something, and it is very funny to me. And maybe it was because somebody texted me that they called it. I don't know.
Oh my God!
But Luke Skywalker showing up was amazing. Luke Skywalker going down the hall, taking out Dark Troopers, super badass. Luke Skywalker coming in, he's going to take Grogu. I mean, and I kind of like, okay, this is where we're going, whatever. When fucking R2-D2 rolls in behind Luke, I teared up, got a giant lump in my throat, and was so happy I could not describe to you. I have not felt this happy in 2020. Like, it was...
Wow.
Something about R2-D2 just gets me, man. He is my fave. And Laura, I think maybe Laura being someone who came into to Star Wars through Clone Wars and other ways, and not the trilogy, like R2 is still R2. Like R2 is awesome. Like R2 has a bond with Ahsoka. R2 has a bond with Luke. And to have this like R2 Grogu moment, especially because R2 was there when Luke met Yoda, and you had all this Yoda R2 business. And so like R2 is just looking down at Grogu, and his little light turns green, and you're just like, he's like, you're just like that fucker that tried to mess with me on the swamp planet. Like, are you gonna beat up on me? But like, so I love R2 so much, and it was just such a perfect R2-D2 moment. And I think it, like, for all of the fan moments and the callbacks, literally for the entire season, and I'm including Ahsoka Tano on this, maybe because like we knew she was coming. The R2 thing blindsided me, and like the 5-year-old inside of me was made whole as a human being. Like, it was perfect.
Laura?
Well, there was a fantastic little sequence with him that happens really subtly, but it happens so perfectly, where Grogu is like clinging to Din Djarin's leg and looking up at him. And then he sees R2 come in, and he kind of turns, and you see his little ears perk up. Yeah. And then he sort of walks towards R2. I actually had a friend message me and asked, do you think that R2 recognizes Grogu from the Jedi Temple, from like the prequel era? And that had never occurred to me until they brought it up. But it does kind of seem like Archie was really excited to see Grogu. And I sort of wonder what all the reasons are behind that. But it really was this cute sequence where like once he sees Grogu sees R2, he's a little bit more motivated to head in that direction. And it's just this really subtle, quiet moment that just like was the icing on the cake for me.
And also, don't we connect the fact that Grogu was he studying with the younglings? It was Anakin who came in and killed the younglings. Now it's Anakin's son who is now going to save him and train him. There's such an interesting connective tissue here throughout that I think is so powerful as well. Great final shot of all of them standing on the bridge, essentially frozen by what's just happened. Door closes, episode over, or so we think. End credits happen, and then we get a trip back to Tatooine, to Jabba's palace, and Boba shows up with Fennec Shand. Fennec Shand first comes in, shoots everybody, frees the slave girl, and Bib Fortuna, who's put on a few COVID pounds himself, sitting up in there, and Boba rolls up, and the interaction between them is so funny. It is not the original actor who did it back in Return of the Jedi, but like boom, takes out Bib Fortuna, sits down confidently on the throne, and then Fennec Shand sitting on the edge of the throne, drinking whatever that is just fucking hell.
It's almost like everyone was like, oh, Boba Fett, you put on some weight. And Bib Fortuna was like, hold my blue beer. Like, it was.
I mean, it was like, it was so funny. Maybe
Did you notice how even his head tails were chubbier?
Yeah.
It wasn't just the extra chins. Like his actual head tails got fat.
I think there's something about sitting on that throne that makes you heavy, like Jabba. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
This was such a like Clone Wars animated moment in the best way, meaning just that like it's you're hitting like all the Star Wars beats. It's giving you everything. And again, I've said this a lot of times, and like, no offense if you like the new trilogy, there's a lot of things that I like about the new trilogy, but it's like the new trilogy kind of never quite could find this balance between new and nostalgia. Mm-hmm. It's like when they would give us something new, it was so different, and we're like, well, this doesn't necessarily feel like Star Wars. A lot of people's issues with Last Jedi, not mine, but a lot of people's issues with Last Jedi kind of fall in that category. And when they would do something, whether it be giving Chewie a medal or doing this, you'd be like, well, now you're just trying. It doesn't feel. And this is like, it's fucking Jabba's phallus. It's Bib Fortuna. It's all this shit. And it's like total Star Wars nostalgia, but it feels new and different. And it opens up this whole thing. Like when Boba sits down and then it just says Book of Boba coming to Disney Plus, you're just like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. Like, and also it's great because Star Wars is made up of heroes being the rebellion or the resistance, villains being the Empire or the First Order, and scum and villainy is the other part of Star Wars. It's bounty hunters, it's gangsters, it's this whole underworld thing. And it like Boba Fett sitting like that seems to be I am going to own the underworld. And I'm really curious. Yeah. Well, not just the planet. Fuck the planet. Like the underworld in the galaxy, like from out, like the outer rim. Like, because like in Clone Wars, they do a lot of underworld stuff. I mean, there's the Hutts, there's the Pikes, there's the, like there's all the different syndicates, the crime syndicates. Right. And we know that Ming-Na Wen is doing the voice of Fennec Shand in the Bad Batch series. I now think there's probably a pretty solid chance we're going to see younger Boba Fett in the Bad Batch series. And we're going to see that relationship form. And we're going to kind of get some more context there to see why they kind of came together when he found her on Tatooine. That leads to them being like, yeah, okay, we're going to help this guy find his kid and stuff. But like, then we're going to get back to our shit, which is taking over the entire underworld.
Well, yeah, and Boba and Fennec said, we owe you. Our debt is we told you we protect the kid. They took the kid. We're going to be with you till you get the kid back. And that's what happened. So their service to the Mandalorian is over. Now they're back to doing what they're going to do. My question is, where is Cobb Vanth now? Is this going to be Cobb Vanth versus Boba on Tatooine? I expected Cobb to make an appearance here, and he did not in this entire episode. So what are they setting up Book of Boba Fett? Is this Cobb Vanth versus Boba throughout that whole series? Perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, and when it said, Book of Boba Fett, December 2021, I think I told you guys, I know one of the stunt guys, and they start shooting in January, season 3. And it's like, okay, have we independently confirmed that The Mandalorian season 3 and Book of Boba Fett are 2 separate things?
There's a lot of conjecture. There's a lot of people are really wondering is I think it's going to be 2 separate things, and here's why. I agree. I didn't think about it, Johnny, but I think you're right about Cobb Vanth. I don't think you bring Timothy Olyphant in to be Cobb Vanth for an episode. So I do think that Cobb Vanth being this marshal on Tatooine, with Boba Fett trying to like rebuild the underworld and Jabba's network. That seems like that goes together. But then you've got Bo-Katan and the Darksaber and Mandalore, and Din Djarin is now the leader of Mandalore, technically, according to the Darksaber rules. And so you've got all of that going on. And meanwhile, we've got Grogu over here, which I don't know what's going to happen. As we said, like, I don't think we're going to see a ton of Luke training him at the temple. I also don't think that Grogu survived death by Anakin to only get death by the Knights of Ren. I don't think we're dumping Grogu to be killed 25 years from now. So I do think we're going to see him come back into this story. And that's the whole... We've got the Mandalore piece. We now have Boba Fett Underworld Cobb Vanth piece. And we've got Ahsoka knowing that she's going to meet up with Sabine and that Thrawn is out there, and that's tied to the Ezra story. So we're seeing all these pieces from animation and different peeps or aftermath with Cobb Vanth. And Filoni and Favreau are just weaving this thing. And Force Awakens is 25 years from now. 25 years is a lot of space to tell a lot of story.
Yeah, Laura, let's get your thoughts on the entire sequence here that happened at Jabba's palace and the fact that these motherfuckers backdoored 3 pilots in one season. Pretty incredible stuff here.
They really did shove a lot into this season. I think the thing that I'm most excited for about this Book of Boba Fett is for more Fennec Shand. I really like this character. I'm really excited to see her in the Bad Batch, so I'm pretty pumped for this. I don't know how I feel about having yet even more happening on Tatooine, but fine. We'll roll with it. They've done a good job with it so far. I have it on... I'm not a scooper, but I have it on decent authority that this is going to be 2 different things. I think Deadline also put an article out today kind of specifying it's going to be 2 different things. And then somebody else pointed out to me that there were 9 projects announced at the Disney Investor Day, but they had mentioned that there were 10 shows in the works. So the assumption is that this was the 10th. That hadn't been announced. So I think we're in a good spot, because I also did the thing where I sat down and made a list of all of things that were not resolved in this specific story, totally unrelated to Boba Fett. I'm like, we can't just end it with this. This is not a finale for this series. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to resolve. I think the most important one being like, what is going to go down between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin with this Darksaber. So I'm really excited to see that story play out. I cannot believe we have to wait a whole year before we're going to get this.
Another thing. Oh, sorry.
Real quick. Are we going to get a season 3 of The Mandalorian? I mean, to me, if you wanted to add that, I don't. If we are, great. That's if you've got it from authority, that's awesome. And the book and the Boba Fett thing. What's Ahsoka going to be about? Rangers of the New Republic. Does this include Cara Dune or not? Some people are speculating Cobb Vanth may be part of that. I doubt it. I think he's part of more of the Boba Fett series. Do we see the 2 X-Wing fighter pilots that we saw throughout the season? Are they going to be part of the Rangers of the New Republic or not? Like, there's so much here. So many questions throughout. Sorry, Mikey. Go ahead.
If there's an opportunity, Dave Filoni is going to sit in an X-Wing cockpit again.
Oh, God. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, the other question, the kind of unresolved thing is Moff Gideon himself. Like, presumably, Cara Dune's going to take him away. Like, they made a pretty big deal. We're not going to let you kill yourself. You're too valuable an asset. The Republic's going to want to talk to you. But we know that the Republic doesn't figure shit out. Like, the First Order shows up in Force Awakens and is like, surprise, bitches, we're going to blow up the Hosnian system. So we know that the answers that Moff Gideon has about the cloning program, about Snoke, about Palpatine down the road, about the First Order itself, that information doesn't make it to the New Republic. Or even if it gets to some New Republic people, it doesn't make it all the way up the ladder. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with him, because they can't just let him, he's in a prison somewhere being questioned, because they can't really. So it'll be interesting to see what that happens, because that's another unresolved thing. But Johnny, you make a really good point. Like, there's so many things. What I think is great and amazing about what Filoni and Favreau and the entire team, like all of the directors, everybody, have done is they've taken this 25 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens and filled it with already more characters than we could ever count that we didn't know existed before this, and a few that we already knew about. And they could give us, like, I can see Grogu 10 years from now. I can see Grogu 15 years. I can see teenage Grogu. I'm good. Like, I want him to show back up. There's so many things now that I care about that didn't exist before this. That it's just fascinating.
Well, and to throw this in, Variety, as I'm looking through, reported back in April that sources, quote, close to the production have confirmed that creator Jon Favreau has been writing season 3 for a while, and that the art department led by Lucasfilm Vice President and Executive Creative Director Doug Chiang has been creating concepts for season 3 for the past few weeks. So as far back as April, there were reports that they were already working on a season 3. So hopefully that is what we get. And then a Boba Fett spinoff series, which has been rumored for some time now over the last few weeks. So that may be the way they go overall. But I do want to get your final thoughts on this. Aren't they essentially kind of propping up the sequel trilogy and what happens with Palpatine, with this blood of Grogu, with this idea of cloning, with this whole thing? Like, does this make you uncomfortable that they're, in essence, kind of trying to make that connective tissue into the sequel trilogy at all? Or do you feel like this is kind of okay for them to explore this a little bit more?
This is what I like about Clone Wars Animated.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna knock them on doing the thing that made me actually like the prequels more. I mean, you know, like we take Cody, take Rex, take any clone. The clones from Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith they were clones and then they turned on the Jedi.
Right.
What makes me cry about that is Clone Wars Animated and the time that they spent with the clones. Ahsoka Tano herself, but like, you know, the Clone Wars Animated took the entire concept of the war, the Clone Wars themselves between the Republic and the Separatists, and gave it so much more dimension, so much more. They made Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship so much more important to me. And so if they take this and actually build a bridge towards Palpatine coming back and all of this actually making more sense, so that 20 years from now, somebody who's watching Star Wars chronologically watches Mandalorian, watches all these series, watches all this stuff, so that by the time they get to Force Awakens, it all works a lot better. I mean, look, and a lot of people, because I was kind of glancing, are arguing, shockingly, on our Star Wars chain, people are arguing about Last Jedi and Luke Skywalker.
Not again! No, it's done. We're moving on.
Well, but look, here's the thing. I love Last Jedi, but even I will say, I understand Mark Hamill's reticence with the role. I understand a lot of people's issues. Like, one of the things that a lot of people, I've read articles about it, is we love Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Luke Skywalker so much. And to get to a new trilogy where we have these new characters and you say, hey, Han and Leia kind of split. Han went back to his gambling ways, and Luke is depressed on an island. It doesn't feel great as a fan of the original trilogy. It sets them up as interesting characters for the new characters to bounce off of, but it's not. And so even Luke showing up here and getting Grogu and seeing this 20 years of, even if we don't see him a ton, knowing that Luke did some awesome and very, very important things besides just Return of the Jedi, I think it's going to smooth everything out and make us care a lot more about, and make, even for those of you that don't like where Luke ends up in Last Jedi, might make that whole arc to where he ends up make a little bit more sense and feel a little bit more grounded for all fans.
That's fair. Let's get into some questions here. We've got a couple of people waiting to come in live, so let's burn through these super chats real quick. Josh Mabry asked, how did Cara not recognize Luke, since she seems to have been in the Rebel Alliance for a while? Anybody want to answer that one? Laura?
No, I mean, it's not like he's a celebrity. I mean, why they wouldn't necessarily be projecting his picture everywhere. I mean, so that's sort of my only headcanon reason that I can come up with.
Yeah, in Bloodlines, it was a big deal that it was revealed that Darth Vader was Leia's dad and that kind of stuff. So, Laura, what was your reaction to this? Did it even occur to you that Cara Dune did not recognize Luke, that was an issue?
It didn't occur to me while I was watching the episode. I think when I was reading Lost Stars, I think one of the things that was really enlightening for me was that there are rebel cells all over the place. And even in Star Wars Rebels, before all the rebel cells come together, they're kind of spread all over the place. I mean, she may not have ever been in the same spot on the same base. It's totally realistic that they never would have crossed paths. So it didn't occur to me at all.
All right. Mikey, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, look, even in the comics, there's some X-Wing pilot who blew up the Death Star. Nobody really some guy had a great shot. And from Empire to Jedi, he goes from Hoth as just a pilot, he's just part of the rebellion, to Dagobah to train as a Jedi, to Bespin to save everybody, then goes to Tatooine to save his friends, which isn't really a rebel-sanctioned mission. That's I gotta go get my homies. And then he comes back and he's on Endor, but even on Endor, he's not in the battle. He shows up pretty quickly, gets separated from the rest of the rebels in his specific cell that are there. And when the Battle of Endor happens, he's on the Death Star. So we know Luke was there. We know Luke is a major part of what won the rebellion. But to a lot of rebel soldiers, even if they heard about this Luke Skywalker, it's not someone they would instantly recognize.
Okay, fair enough. Red Dizon says, I think it operates sort of like Afro Samurai in the Headlands. If no one has it, it's yours. But once someone claims it, you have to earn it. I imagine he's referencing the Darksaber there. Is that possible? Is that a good way that it could work? I feel like yes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, all right. You stumble across the Darksaber, you're the leader of Mandalorian.
I do think that is going to be, I think that is correct, and I think that's going to play at least a piece of it, because I went back and watched those Rebels episodes this morning, and I'm like, I mean, there wasn't anybody to fight to get it, so it was in kind of a different area.
Well, look, in Excalibur, you can just get the sword from the Lady in the Lake, so, it's not the first time this has happened this way. In stories. Nerd says, what do you all think about Boba the Hutt? Oh, well, is that fair, Boba the Hutt? I don't know. Laura?
I mean, look at where he's sitting. He's Boba the Hutt.
Laura, is he Boba the Hutt? I don't know.
I don't. In the terms that he is the ruler now of the palace, which once belonged to the Hutts. Sure.
and I wonder if we're going to get tied in the George Lucas stuff, maybe that he wrote, that Underworld series that he was writing. Maybe some of those scripts start being a part of what the Boba Fett series kind of tackles or encounters. That could be interesting too, I suppose. Let's see. Thad Pettit says, it's Luke Skywalker, mother effer. It's Christian Harloff's brother texted him that this morning before he saw the episode. So that was a big deal. So,
God, that's way worse than I called it. That's way worse than I called it.
I called it could have been anything. I didn't do it. Let's see. DGMC says, I wasn't on board with the younger Luke series / movie before today, but I kind of am now, just a little bit. Yeah. Do we want to see a Luke Skywalker series during this time now?
I mean, we kind of got one already. It's episode 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm really glad that they did, despite my misgivings about the technology, is that they didn't recast him. Like, a lot of people are saying, make Sebastian Stan Luke Skywalker. And I'm like, I don't think that will work. I don't think you can have someone else embody that role between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, where you have Mark Hamill bookending you on those sides. Like, I don't think you can stick another actor in there. Like, if you want to use him in live action, this is the only way you can do it.
If I was Lucasfilm, I would get him into a voiceover booth and have him say every word in the English language so that I can, down the road, be able to do this. Because they do that for these sports games where they bring in these announcers and they're literally there for days saying things over different words over and over again, different teams, different things like that, multiple times, so they can use any possible equation that could come up. You have a voiceover for it. So I would absolutely do that with Mark Hamill before he passes.
I mean, I think, I said if they wouldn't have Luke show up to get Grogu, and I was clearly wrong. So who knows what they're planning? But I think that I'm with Shannon. Like, had they cast Sebastian Stan or somebody came in as Luke Skywalker, and you're like, okay, then I'd be like, oh, maybe we're really going to see more of Luke. I think we're not, and I think to the people who kind of feel things were fan servicey or worry about fan servicey things, I think it's for the best that we use these characters as sparingly as possible.
I think that's absolutely fair. Laura, do you feel the same way?
I think I'm on the other side of it. I sort of wish that they would have recast him over doing the sort of Uncanny Valley CGI attempt. But that's just, I would have preferred it to, I think, just be like a little bit more of like an organic performance is something I would have liked to see. I don't know if I don't need a Luke Skywalker like standalone series by any means. I'm good. So I guess it's sort of makes sense that they wouldn't have gone out of their way to cast somebody like Sebastian Stan to play a young Luke in something like this for just literally 5 minutes of screen time. So I get why they did it the way that they did it. But I think it's the same sort of thing for me as like, well, why didn't you put Ashley Eckstein as live action Ahsoka? I'm like, it's a different performance. It's going to be it's a different age. It's going to be interpreted differently by a different actor. And I kind of would have been curious to see a different actor in this role interpreted differently. I wouldn't have had a problem with it.
Yeah, I've come around to your side of things. I don't have a problem with recasting. I think down the road, recast a new. Look, we can't keep holding on. The older generation can't keep holding on to what we had. We have to move past it, grow up, and let go. And I can finish my sentence here. And recast these characters with new actors. Have them come in because a whole new generation of people can discover them differently and be okay with the recasting. I think in this situation, I'm okay with it. Go ahead, Mike.
I think it's a little bit challenging to say the old fans have to learn to let things go, but here, take the person that is related to the old fans and let's keep them around and not have new characters. Like, I agree, but I'm just saying that like this is
I don't my influence of that, but okay.
Well, I just think that when it comes to look, if you're gonna like 20 years, if you're 20 years from now gonna go do another
yes, I agree. A new Indiana Jones, I'm fine with that. Go ahead, yeah.
If you're in 20 years going to like kind of retell these Star Wars stories and recast people and have new people play them, great. But to Shannon's point, this era of Star Wars is bookended by 3 movies where Mark Hamill plays Luke Skywalker
right.
and 3 movies where Mark Hamill plays Luke Skywalker.
Absolutely.
So now look, I do think that if they had huge plans to tell Luke Skywalker stories, like if it was sort of like, if you were going to do the live action version of what Clone Wars animated did, where they really like built out Obi-Wan and Anakin and everything, and we were really going to delve into Luke and tell all of these stories about his journey finding this Jedi temple and building Jedi, then by necessity you have to recast him. You're not going to do Uncanny Valley for multiple seasons of a show with Mark Hamill. Like, it's just not going to happen. So if that's a direction they want to go, I kind of fall into the Laura category of saying that's something I don't want. I think I'm way more interested in all of these new things about Star Wars.
Oh, sure.
But if they were going to do it, and if this was the team that was going to do it, and it was going to be amazing, then great, and recast Luke Skywalker.
Right. I mean, down the road, I don't mean to recast him now. I mean, down the road, if you're going to explore this, absolutely. But look, we're doing Boba. So we brought back Tamora Morrison to play Boba. That's an old character. That's an old thing that's connected to both trilogies, for sure, with that actor and the character of Boba Fett. What were you going to say, Laura? Were you going to chime in with something?
Well, I was going to mention that they did recast Han. I mean, he didn't bookend a trilogy on either side of it, but
that's fair.
Maybe it didn't work for some people. That's fair. It worked for me. I like Solo, so
yeah, I like. You know what? And as much as I'm saying the one thing, I also really like Solo. So point taken.
That's the
and I think it would be different if Solo didn't take place before A New Hope. Like if you wanted to do a Han Solo series in between the 2 trilogies, I'd have been like, I don't know.
Just Mabry says, if you're in the hallway with a Skywalker, you're done, son. Yeah,
that is true. That is true.
Hobbit F. Andy says, I'll see you again, I promise. God, I hope this promise ends up better than Anakin's. Well, yeah, that's for sure.
Agreed. And I think it will. Yeah. I think it will. I think that these two, I think that Mando and Grogu's story is not done.
No, I don't think so either. So Laura, there's hope. Laura, there's hope.
Thank you.
Tim, I can't see your face, so I'm not going to bring you in yet. So when you're there you are. All right, Tim, come on in. What's your question, brother? Welcome to the Geek Buddies. How are you, Tim Sim? Is your microphone turned on?
Oh no.
There. Nope. I can't. We can't hear you, Tim. Have you selected your thing?
Tim, we want you.
There we go. Something?
I had to change the microphone first.
No worries.
All right. Yeah, so let me just put a question on what I was saying. I mean, I really enjoyed the finale. Definitely emotional and well done finale. It's just the Luke Skywalker thing I thought was trying to overkill on fan service, but I get it, especially it's logistical, especially timeline wise. But I'm just hoping for more surprise. But I'm fine with it as long as it doesn't distract from what really is happening between Din and Grogu. So yeah. So I think my question is, especially for all 4 of you, especially with the future season of Mandalorian season 3 and all the series, is where do you think you will go, especially with the one co-main event, and also where do you think hopefully want to take place? Would you want to see, say, Ahsoka being with Luke Skywalker?
That's an interesting question. Well, first of all, I think I do agree with you. I think what's great about Star Wars, and we've talked about this a lot in the past several weeks, is that so many people have come at it from so many different ways, including the four of us. You know, where Laura came to Star Wars versus where we did. And I think that's why a little bit of Luke Skywalker goes a long way. I think having that moment work and having that moment be there for hardcore fans who have been a part of Star Wars for so long is wonderful and amazing, and it makes logical sense. But as we were saying, I'm glad that it didn't overshadow the emotional moment with Din and Grogu. So I think that I like them using that stuff a little bit. And as we were saying, where I want to see things go, I'm really more interested in Fennec Shand and Bo-Katan's story and Mandalore's story and what Ahsoka and Sabine are going to get up to when they get together. On the Ahsoka Luke front, for me, I don't know that I really want to see that in live action, but it's something I've often imagined about what those two would talk about if they got together. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Fair. Shannon, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Rangers of the New Republic, I mean, I think you could have done that within The Mandalorian. I mean, you could have taken the characters and done it within that show. I'm the whole thing with the Darksaber, that's very intriguing. I mean, we get to see Mandalore in live action for the first time. And honestly, I'm assuming, I think most people are assuming that the Ahsoka series is going to deal with Thrawn. A live action Grand Admiral Thrawn is really, really what I would like to see. And whether that shows up in Ahsoka or The Mandalorian, I think that will be a great antagonist for whichever hero has to deal with him.
Yeah. Laura, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the point of bringing in Luke Skywalker into this story made the most sense for this story. I think that when I was seeing a lot of speculation of, maybe they'll bring in Ezra, maybe they'll bring in Cal Kestis, maybe they'll bring in Mace Windu, maybe he's alive. There are a lot of ways I think that could have gone wrong, specifically with someone like Ezra or Cal. I did not play Jedi Fallen Order. I'm not a gamer. I'm never going to play Jedi Fallen Order. I was having a lot of anxiety about that reveal being the reveal of the show because I was going to feel out of the loop. And I was going to be annoyed with that. And this way, nobody's feeling out of the loop. Everyone knows who Luke Skywalker is. I think this was sort of the way that it made the most sense to execute it. Yeah. In terms of what they're going to be doing in future seasons, I think the reclamation of Mandalore is going to be on the table. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff with this Darksaber. We're going to see a lot of Bo-Katan. I think I thought we had heard the rumors that she might be sort of getting her own spin-off series. We haven't heard that play out anywhere officially yet, so I think it makes more sense that she's probably going to be returning maybe as a series regular in season 3. But I think that seeing that story play out on a show that is called The Mandalorian makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Yep. I think if we're jumping into a season 3, and we are, it makes the most sense as well the way this season ended. You hand off the attachment that the Mandalorian has, which is Grogu, to Luke to train so that you can make space for this other next adventure in Din Djarin's life, which is figuring out what to do in the Mandalore situation. Is he now going to be the ruler of Mandalore? And if so, what is this tension going to be between him and Bo-Katan? Or will they set up some ultimate fight between them? And as Michael mentioned, is Sabine coming in? What's Thrawn's part in all of this? What is all of this that's going to happen here with them? So there's already very rich stuff to explore in season 3 with all these characters already. And I'm sure we'll see more of other characters coming back from the Clone Wars into live action or animated series into live action. I'm sure that's totally all on the plate to see what will happen in season 3. So the Luke moment was a fine moment for what it was. It was cool. It was awesome. We all blew up. We all went crazy. It was fun. And now let's move on. And then maybe eventually down the road, we'll see Luke again, but not anytime soon. And it won't be a recurring thing, I'm pretty sure. And I don't want to see a teenage Grogu showing up here playing video games like a teenage Groot. I want to see something farther down the road where he's a master or something.
Yeah, certainly. Basically, like I said, I'm fine with Luke since he started functional. It's just that some friends of mine online are much more unhappier to a bigger extent than me about overseeing Luke. So,
wait, there's people unhappy online? Come on, Tim, you can't be.
Wait a minute. What?
On social media? That can't be real.
I mean, they can't win them all. Yeah.
Yeah, I take your point. I take your point, and it's going to happen. I think if they had gone with Cal Kestis, there'd be just as many people upset about it. Or Ezra Bridger, if Ezra Bridger didn't 100% line up with what they wanted, they might have been upset too. So you're never going to satisfy everybody. That's the way this whole thing is.
unless Meryl Streep had showed up.
As Luke Skywalker.
Meryl Streep can play anything, and everybody always loves it. She can do no wrong.
That's true. Unless you've seen Prom, she can do wrong. All right, thanks, Tim.
Thanks. Yeah, have a good night, guys.
Much love.
See you, Tim.
And let's bring in Josh Mabry, who's been waiting to talk to us too. Josh,
What's up?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So great show, guys. So I guess the question is, the King Arthur thing is what I've always thought about when you said that, I was like, dang it, Rocha, you figured it out too. So he kind of lucked into it in King Arthur, right? Sword in the Stone, maybe the Disney one. Right. Do you see that going as like kind of a tonal shift with, the whole, he has to have that role and he's basically exploring new things coming out of it, like where it's more of like a Western, but now you might get more medieval, like Game of Thrones style.
Do you mean Mando, or do you go into the season
Mando?
3?
Yeah, like season 3.
Mandalore? On
Mandalore, because he has Darksaber. She doesn't want to like just take it from him.
Right,
he wants to give it up. So he's kind of like, well, how about you just rule and I just have the Darksaber? So he's like paraded around as the king, fight type of thing.
Yeah, but one of the greatest quotes I ever read about politicians or rulers is, the people who want to rule should never rule, and the people who don't want to rule should rule, because they're not doing it from an ego place or from a desire to have power or desire to control things. So maybe this is a better movement, and maybe the Mandalorian Din Djarin kind of moves into this place where he actually kind of explores the possibility of ruling, and there's a little bit of the Bo-Katan nipping on the side. But I just don't think it makes sense for him to rule, and I think they have to eventually hand it over to Bo-Katan. It'll be Bo-Katan's journey to kind of put down the traditions that she thought, because this is all her and this stories and whatever, that she's the one holding on to this stuff. If she just took that saber and was like, okay, I'm going to go rule Mandalore, this whole thing would be over. But she's tied to this need to have to fight him for the sword. So we'll see if that's something, her emotional journey she has to go on as well in season 3. What do you all think?
Well, we also don't know the state of Mandalore. Like Boba said, like the Empire turned that planet.
What does that mean, by the way? Does anybody understand that quote?
I mean,
I'm assuming
Mandalore
decimated.
Well, Mandalore already was pretty decimated from previous battles,
right.
And so all of like the cities that with the Jedi. So Mandalore is basically a giant planet of sand, and the cities that we would see in Clone Wars were under these giant domes. And when we see it in Rebels, like they're still battling against a lot of sand. So when they say like it's glass, it means like the Empire like blew it up with so much firepower that all the sand melted and turned into glass. Like whether that's actually true or not, or like a little bit of hyperbole, I think that's kind of the like. Look, it's Star Wars, so we could easily get to Mandalore, and it's literally a glass planet at this point. But I think that's what they're saying.
Okay, all right, Laura, what do you think of this one?
The glass comment, I'm sort of not sure about. But yeah, that was my thought too. Was flashing back to season 3, I think, is when we saw Mandalore in Star Wars Rebels, and how it all of these giant cities that used to stand there are now just meadows of sort of dead grass. There's not a ton to see there, so I wonder if it got that much worse than that. I mean, this Night of 1,000 Tears, I think that's referenced in the season 1 finale. Yeah. I don't know if we know the timeline of when exactly that happened. My assumption is after season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, and sometime between that and where we are now with the Mandalorian. But yeah, I think that I like to think that this Darksaber thing might get resolved quicker than we might think.
Yeah, maybe.
It's going to take up an entire season.
I hope so too, because it kind of gets not to interrupt, but I hope so too, just because I think it would get too political and kind of boring. So
yeah, as much as I love Bo-Katan, I would love to see her more in the show. I have a feeling it's going to sort of get resolved, and we're going to go on a different journey at some point in season 3. Maybe we bring back Carl Weathers, and he's got new missions or something, because Din Djarin now needs a new mission. He needs a new something to motivate him, and I don't see ruling Mandalore as being nothing for him.
Yeah, we didn't see Grief Karga at all in this last episode. So we haven't seen Grief Karga much since a few episodes ago. Yeah,
I I don't know that I fully agree with that, only because I don't think that season 3 will be all Darksaber and Bo-Katan. I think there will be other things going on. There's a lot of seeds, and I think they're going to use Mandalorian to sort of interweave with some of these other series that they're doing to build to some big overarching thing. So I think we're going to see a lot of other things going on. But I mean, the Mandalore itself, which was nothing before Clone Wars animated. I mean, not that it was nothing. We knew that Mandalore was a place and that Boba Fett's armor was Mandalorian. But like between Satine wanting to make Mandalore more peaceful, Bo-Katan being part of Death Watch, Darth Maul taking over Mandalore with the Darksaber, Mandalore being blown apart and going back to old factions, Sabine coming with the Darksaber and giving it to Bo-Katan so she could reunite the factions, and then having an entire series called The Mandalorian, Dave Filoni clearly has a lot of capacity to tell Mandalorian stories. He's clearly... And Jon Favreau was the voice of Pre Vizsla. Like, he was there when the episode that introduced the Darksaber was born. Yeah. So I do think that these two probably have some kind of like, we get to tell this epic story of how these two sisters over the course of generations brought Mandalore back to whatever it needs to be. So I do think we will get... I don't think this is something we're going to resolve quickly. I think we'll see other things going on, including maybe Grogu coming back into it and Jedi plots and whatever. But I think we're going to get a lot of Mandalore in Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah, I don't want Grogu to come back for a couple seasons, in my personal opinion. Josh, what's? Yeah, I know. I love the gutsiness of handing Grogu. That's so ballsy. And in fact, if they stopped Mandalorian after this second season, I would respect them even more for doing it that way.
Me too.
Because
I missed him already.
Did you all not like? There was one last thing, and then I'll get off here and let y'all do your thing. He was kind of becoming like the Family Matters Urkel thing, where
that's my point. People were focusing on him, and it's called The Mandalorian.
I mean, everyone's Urkel, but I'm just saying. Yeah. Did you not just like?
You just Urkeled Grogu?
Maybe you went too far. Maybe just a little.
I mean, the internet's known for hating on people. Might as well hate on me. I don't care. But I'm just saying, John agrees with me.
No, I didn't say I 100% agree with you. I said he was getting close to that point where they get
like. Obviously, he's not Urkel. Okay.
By the way,
we know that Grogu is like a saint. Okay.
Hey, Josh.
I love the throwing out of a point and immediately backpedaling.
Oh yeah. By the way, Josh. You know how you're not going to get me on your side? Saying Rocha agrees with you.
I know. Michael loves to contradict. It's our game.
But I hear what you're saying.
All right. You good, Josh?
Yeah. Other than that, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau seem to be like a Feige where he picks and chooses from the books. So what would y'all like to see them choose from next?
Ooh.
I'll leave that to you guys. I don't read the books that
much. Catalyst is the only book that I read which made Rogue One even better. That's why it's number 2 on my list. But the other, like even Legends, they even like bring back obviously Thrawn. They brought back. I don't know if that was because Filoni brought him into Rebels, but I just know that they're kind of doing the Feige thing where he picks and chooses from the Marvel comics of how he makes the stories, and it obviously makes sense. They've grossed a lot of money.
This isn't really an old. There you go. This isn't really old school stuff. This is more new school stuff. But I really enjoyed. I think Laura brought this up a few weeks ago too. I really enjoyed Bloodlines and getting into the politics of the New Republic. And I do think like if they brought some of that in, I'd be into it.
Yeah, fair. I like this helping us out here. Just watch The Irishman 4 times. 12 months will pass in no time. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. That's absolutely fair. So I appreciate that. All right. Thanks, Josh. It's great to see you, brother.
Yep.
All right.
Have a good night, Josh.
All right, one last thing, because I got to wrap. I've become incredibly tired. This has been a hell of a day, but I will say 2 things. What do we think about? Get your thoughts on these guys, ladies and gentlemen. What were your thoughts on Jon Favreau's writing through the entire season 2? And what was your opinion of the score throughout the entire season, and especially in this episode? Yeah, who wants to take this? Shannon, go ahead.
Ludwig Göransson, he's becoming the cross between John Williams and Hans Zimmer, man.
Is he the new John Williams for the Star Wars?
Well, I don't know if he's the new John Williams per se, but I think he's definitely a cross between those two composers. And at that great opening scene that culminated with Cara Dune blasting that Imperial pilot, and his theme just ramping up right away. You knew as a viewer, shit's about to go down. And Favreau, I've seen some people complain about the writing, which was a shock to me because I thought it's all been really, really outstanding.
Yeah.
I thought Favreau did a great job, and like Rick Famuyiwa actually wrote his episode as well, and everything. Famuyiwa was especially with a lot of the stuff with Mayfeld. I was like, I'm not a huge Bill Burr guy. I think he does a really good job in a franchise he doesn't necessarily belong in. But his writing was outstanding.
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Laura?
I think Filoni wrote his episode too, and also I think knocked it out of the park. I thought the writing this season was great. I need to go back and revisit this whole season and kind of do like a binge watch and see how I feel about it. But I feel like every episode we watched this season, I was seeing people online being like, this was the best episode so far. This is the best episode of The Mandalorian so far. It was over and over and over again. I kept seeing it. So I think it's going to hold up really well in going through and actually doing a full rewatch. On the music note, did anybody else notice that the Dark Troopers sort of have like a dubstep theme?
Yeah,
Of course.
It's Daft Punk. Why wouldn't it? It makes all the sense in the world. Yeah.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah. What do you think, Mikey, of the writing and then overall the season? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ludwig Göransson, I'm echoing what Shannon said. The mixture of John Williams and Hans Zimmer is where he sits in between, like, Black Panther score, Tenet, and everything he's done on Mandalorian. He's sitting in this spot where I'm like, are you one of the new greats? Yeah. Like, you are killing it. And like the fact that he's not afraid to do something like bring in some techno vibes for the Dark Troopers, or, you know, like, it's just, he's all over the place, and I fucking love it. Yeah. The writing I find fascinating. I really respect it a lot because as a lot of writers, I overwrite because writers always overwrite. You feel like you have to explain a lot of things. You're like, you want to give all the dialogue, you want to do this stuff. And Jon Favreau writes like a director, which I think is a good thing, because he is not just thinking about what's on the page when he writes the dialogue. And that's what I can do sometimes, and I know other people do. It's like, you're just focusing on the page, does this all track? Did I explain this? Did this make sense to here, to here, to here? And he thinks like a director. So he's thinking of what it's going to look like. He's thinking of the visuals. And a lot of times you can get away with saying a lot less because what we as the audience are seeing is filling in a lot of those gaps. Yeah. And Mandalorian is a show that does a lot of that. Like, you can have these long sequences where, you know, it's just Mando kind of sitting there, and it's just a cock of his head says way more than him being like, what's that over there? Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that's like dumb example, but you get the point. Like, so I think that when people say that they don't think that Mandalorian is well written, I think sometimes what they're actually, and look, some people might not like the writing, and that's fair, but I think some people, when they say it, are kind of saying, well, there's not a lot of talking. Mm-hmm. Like, they're not explaining a lot. But I think that's intentional, and it's stylistic, and I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, as do I. I absolutely love it. I think the writing was stellar this season, and I didn't think that they put anything in here that was going too far or like just a non sequitur or a random thing. That everything was there for a reason and made sense organically within all the episodes of the season, and the score was incredible. And I noticed that kind of Western notes he threw in there when Luke showed up and was doing his thing. I was like, oh, you genius, you motherfucking genius. It was a Western vibe to it, and I was like, yep, there it is. It's beautiful. And throughout, the score has been incredible to keep just playing there, keep you in the moment. Sometimes you don't even notice it's so damn good, and it's elevating the emotion of the scene, elevating what's happening in the scenes that you're watching. And it's just a gift to be able to do that and to understand how to use it effectively. And certainly that was done throughout the season. And let me say something too. One more thing. I said this on SEN Live this morning. This is the best thing Peyton Reed has ever directed. And I do like those Ant-Man movies, and I do like Yes Man. But if this is what Peyton Reed can do, let's give him a more serious character, a more serious superhero, or something to play around with, because I want to see what more we can get from Peyton Reed in a franchise situation. And there's rumors that he's going to direct more episodes of season 3. So let's have him do more. I'd hand him a Star Wars movie today after what I saw in this episode, myself personally. And all the directors throughout the season have been fantastic this season. Have really stepped up to match the level. And you could argue as well, it's very clear that Disney put so much money into this season, and it shows the quality, the theatrical quality we've seen in almost every episode, theatrical film quality we've seen in almost every episode. And as tough as it was to maybe one up season 1, I think they did it in a big way in season 2. Would
Definitely.
you three disagree at all with that?
No,
Not at
no. I mean, just the comparison of the 2 finales. Season 1, we had the 2-parter. Even just the action sequences. How season 1, you had that great battle with the stormtroopers, with IG-11 coming into the lava river, into Din versus a TIE fighter.
Yeah,
and this was also insulated, but it was just, if not even more threatening. Yeah, I thought that they very much topped themselves in season 2.
Yeah. All right. I think that's, I think any final words before we wrap up here? We've been going for 2 hours and almost 15 minutes, so we should probably wrap up. Any final words?
Yeah, I think that with the 2 exceptions of when Star Wars originally came out and when Empire Strikes Back was released, this might be the greatest time to be a Star Wars fan that exists.
Wow, I would agree with that. I would agree. Laura, any final words?
I am so annoyed I have to wait a whole year to get the rest of this story. But this was great. This was really exciting. This season was so much fun. It was such a thrill, and it was such a thrill to get to see so many people be so excited to see the particular character they love come into this show. It was just a thrill and a pleasure to watch. So I'm excited to go back, do a full season rewatch, and just relive it all again.
Yeah. Shannon?
No. I'm so excited to see, one, if Mandalorian season 3 and Book of Boba Fett are 2 different things. I hope we get confirmation on that soon. And I imagine we'll be seeing all of our audience, probably in about 4 weeks when WandaVision starts?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We'll be back doing these. Certainly we'll be doing some reviews of WandaVision here. But first we have Soul. And we have Wonder Woman coming up next week. So we'll be doing reviews of that on the Geek Buddies as well. Let's wrap it up here. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We had almost 500 of you all joining us tonight. So if you're still hanging out and you haven't hit that like button, please do so. If you're watching us later on, guess what? You can still hit that like button, that thumbs up button, and leave comments below. The more comments you leave, the more likes you leave. It elevates the visibility of the show. And when people are hunting around for shows to talk about or watch that break down Star Wars or break down The Mandalorian, they'll turn to the Geek Buddies in this review specifically and enjoy themselves for sure. I want to give a big thank you as well to Laura Kelly, who has sat in for the last few weeks and just knocked it out of the park. We couldn't have been more blessed to have you on the show, Laura. Your points of view are so knowledgeable about Star Wars. It's really elevated our discussions and our breakdowns of these last few episodes. So thank you so much for taking the time to do so. And please tell people where they can find you and all that you have going on in your world.
Well, thank you guys. This was a real pleasure. So thank you for having me. This was great and very exciting for me to be able to do this. I love any opportunity to talk about Star Wars. If you want to hear me talk about Star Wars some more, you can hear that on my podcast, which is Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, where me and my friend Alice drink wine and talk about Star Wars. And then you can find me competing in the next season of the Movie Trivia Showdown. In season 8 in the Star Wars League. And then John and I host the Jedi Way. So come find us there. We talk big picture Star Wars themes, characters, all of the above.
Absolutely. And if you can't get enough Star Wars and the stuff we talked about here, Laura and I just recently dropped our last episode of or most recent episode of the Jedi Way, where we discuss Anakin Skywalker's journey and also reference a story in the new Certain Point of View Empire Strikes Back book and how that relates to the relationship between Anakin and Kenobi and Qui-Gon and how all of this kind of came together. So please watch that episode. It's a lot of fun, and I'm pretty proud of that one. We had a really great time having a great conversation on that. Shannon, what do we got to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you would like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MK2, and if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
Look, rebellion, resistance, empire, or first order, all are welcome here. And we want to thank all you guys for watching today. Thank all you guys in the comments. Sort of keep an eye on it as we go. And you guys are all awesome and amazing. And thank you for sticking with us. And thank you for being such awesome and loyal fans of the show, no matter where you are watching from. Definitely hit the like button. Definitely subscribe to Johnny's page if you are not already. And most importantly, share this video, especially this weekend while everybody is obsessed and wants to hear people talk about that season finale of Mandalorian. Share this link, post it on Twitter, post it on Facebook, text it to your friends, say, hey, these guys all know a lot about Star Wars and Mandalorian. They are pretty smart, and John Rocha only messed up this morning mildly when he texted.
I'm sorry. I said I'm sorry. I'll say I'm sorry again. I will never be mad at you for being upset about that. Vincent Guano, one last super chat, said, my God, seeing Luke kick ass made me cry tears of joy. Ditto. And Shannon, hope you are holding up okay. So a lot of love there. And Shannon, thanks, dude. Thanks for coming back in and being part of this. And we love you madly, brother. And it's great to have you back on the show and moving forward. So thank you
very much. It's very nice to be back.
Definitely. We just dropped our most recent episode of the Geek Buddies where the three of us talked about a bunch of stuff there. So go and take a look at that, including Tom Cruise's rant. Wear your mask, you sons of bitches. No, I'm just joking. Anyway, thank you so much for all the stuff you've given us here. And keep looking out on all the stuff we do here on the Outlaw Nation channel, and especially the Geek Buddies, for more of the nerdy stuff coming down your way. And don't forget, we also have a podcast channel. So in case you don't want to see our pretty faces, you can listen to us talk about this on the Outlaw Nation. On the Geek Buddies feed there when you go to iTunes, wherever you download podcasts, and that'll be up real soon. All right. Thanks to everybody. Much love to you. And we'll talk to you next time on a brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies.